Hello again, friends! And you are our friends, and welcome back to another edition
How many of them you think are our friends now? After I jerked their pud all weekend. Go ahead.
Welcome to another edition of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, certainly the only wrestling podcast using the word pud. This week on the show, I commend Jim Cornette, a word that you don't hear too often anymore, for genitalia. I'm your host, the great Brian Last, and here he is, the man who reintroduced pud into the world, Mr. Jim Cornette.
I'm going to reintroduce my pud into Hotchkiss feather bottom sphincter on a daily basis. God damn it. All right, first of all, to answer everybody's question on Twitter until I got off of it. I ain't been on the interwebs in the last 24 hours, Brian. I got off of them. I haven't done the Twitter. I haven't done the email. I haven't done the websites. I'm on this for you and for the listeners. But otherwise, I'm having no contact for at least a week with anything related to the interwebs, websites, internets, worldwide, whatever the fucks. But to answer the question that was uppermost in everybody's mind, yes, Hotchkiss Featherbottom is still alive. Because there was no way that I was going to let him get off that easy. There was no way that I was going to let him get away without suffering and pain and torment and damnation and the fury of Cornette. So he's still alive, but he's not as happy as he was 3 days ago.
Does his car still have windows?
No, he don't have a car. He has to borrow his mother's moped to begin with, because he doesn't have a license to operate anything that heavy. But nevertheless, about his transportation, he don't need any transportation right now. He's scared to leave his house. If anybody by this point is wondering what we're talking about, the much vaunted debut of the all-new JimCornette.com this past Saturday, September the 4th, did not come off without its hitches, including the fact that it crashed. The site didn't crash, Brian, because the site never went up. The Cult of Cornette crashed the Coming Soon banner.
The splash page.
The whatever the fuck it's called. Everything at 8:30 on Saturday morning. I was on the phone with Hotchkiss. Everything's looking good. I'm doing some tests. I'll call you back in a little while. Okay, 9:30. Yep. I've made some test orders in the store. I've seen that the PayPal has worked. Confirmation emails are going out. All the pages look good on the various everything's linked to where it's supposed to. It did. We're just farting through silk, right? And I said, all right. I said, I'm going to go down and get something to drink or whatever. We're not going to go right at 10 a.m. on this thing. Let's get it up 5 minutes early. Go live, as they say, I think. We're going to, about 5 minutes early to reward anybody who might be checking in a few minutes early. And I've looked and boy, everything looks great. It popped up instantly. Everything's fine. So, right. So anyway, come back up here, call Hotchkiss, get on there at 5 minutes till, and right as he answers and I've clicked on the thing, I don't have the Coming Soon banner. I've got fucking error messages about everything. There's some big 505, I think, was a number. I said, what the fuck is this? He said, I'm seeing the same thing. So many people got on so early that it crashed before he had time to put the website up for it to crash. Now, I know many people are saying, but wait a minute. This was supposed to be the uncrashable website. This was supposed to be the unsinkable Titanic. So where'd the iceberg come from? Which is what I said to Hotchkiss. I said, how the fuck have they crashed the site before we even put the site up when you said we had all the server we could have? And he said, well, I said we had all the server we could need. there's a semantics difference there. I said, what do you mean? He said, we've got like 10 times the server the old site has. I said, apparently that's not enough. So now he can't get, because the whole thing's crashed, he can't get into the website itself to do anything with it to begin with. So I said, call somebody. Get on your telephone and call somebody and call me back. So he calls me back. It's an hour or whatever. He's been on the phone with somebody else at the server people. And they said, yeah, it's traffic. They can't. I said, how can we get more server? He said, well, we can switch over. We're going to switch over to unlimited server, to the biggest. Yes, which is what I'd been saying to begin with. I not only want all the server, all my server, I want other people's server. I want to steal server away from people. God damn it. So anyway, this goes on. For Saturday afternoon is happening, and he calls back. He said they're switching to bigger servers. They're going to switch over. I talked to the guy because he had talked to the guy at the server place before and showed him the data from the old site. And the guy had said, oh, you'll have no problem here. He said he assured me we wouldn't have any problem. I said, apparently we got a problem. So now they're switching it to the bigger server. I said, how long is that going to take? He said, well, the guy said by tonight or in the morning. What? So at some points on Saturday, if you got on as things slowed down because nothing was there, then you could get the coming soon page or the opening soon, and Hotchkiss tried to update that, which was some people on some devices were seeing we're switching servers coming soon, and some people were just seeing opening soon, and I don't know what the fuck. So basically Saturday night, when I know that it's going to be now Sunday morning before this thing is operational, they got this stuff now they call the Grub Hub, where people just bring you food, right? So I had a goddamn half-pound San Francisco burger and a hot brown and a big order of potato skins from the Goose Creek Diner and Twinkies and some cake and etc. and awaited Sunday morning to come to find out if we're all updated and if this thing can go on the air. And early on Sunday morning, well, it actually wasn't that early. It was about 10 o'clock. Because at that point, I get the all clear from Hotchkiss that everything is updated and everything should be working swimmingly. And so we both get on the thing and we're looking at it and everything seems fine. And I said, all right, now, why don't you turn this thing on quietly before anybody knows that it's going to go on and before I make an announcement? And let's just make sure, because he's already made a couple of more test orders and he's already tested all the links and the blah, blah, blah. So he puts it up and it's out there in the public eye. And within a minute or so, not even a minute, he said, yeah, there's people in the store. There's people putting stuff in the cart. There's 50 people there, 60, whatever. He's looking to get the back end of this thing. And yes, a few people start making the orders and completing the orders. Well, we're getting the orders emails. And somebody had tweeted me, wow, the new site looks so lovely. This has all happened within like 3-4 minutes, right? And then I said, well, I'm going to click one of these other pages on my brand new, beautiful site. And I click on that and it just starts loading and loading. And I said, hey, is not and he's like, wait, it's running slow for me. Wait. And then all of a sudden on Twitter, I'm seeing, hey, this thing won't load. And all I'm getting is a white, it's just loaded. It's timing out, as the kids say. And all of a sudden, some people are in, some people are out, some people are timing out. I'm like, what the fuck? It's impossible if we have unlimited server for this many people to be crashing this in this short a period of time, Hotchkiss. What the fuck? I don't know. I said, pull the whole goddamn thing down until we this is chaos, because now everybody on Twitter is going, well, I don't know what to do. And he finally gets it, he pulls it down, and he calls these server people again. And then he calls me back. And Brian, guess what it was that the server people said to him?
Now, they had already gone to as much server as they can give you, correct?
The word unlimited was used. Unlimited server capacity. And it's not like I'm trying to find a fucking discount on this. I've said, just get the server, buy the server, build the server, right?
At no point did you say, let's look for a deal. It's all been about,
yes,
let's get what we need.
Yes.
What did they tell you?
They told him, well, you've got some limits on this and that. Wait, he said, wait a minute. It's supposed to be unlimited server. How can there be limits on it? Oh, we can turn that off. Well, do it. And they turn it off, and the guy says, well, that should be fine now. He said, I've heard that before. So he calls me back and actually has to say to me that the guy said that the unlimited server had limits on it, but he's turned them off now. And I said, well, we've turned the whole goddamn thing off now. So I said, here's what you're going to do. You're not going to put that website back up, whether if and or when it works. You're going to put up what I fucking send you. And I sent him a brief message that is up there. If you want to go to JimCornette.com right now, you'll see in edited version, it's shorter. I didn't have that much room. I didn't think people wanted to read a book. That basically, it's a beautiful site, and it didn't fucking work, and I've never trusted this bullshit to begin with, and I don't know whether it's worth the aggravation, and I'll make a decision at some point, when or if I will ever put this goddamn thing on the air or not. Because Cornette's collectibles are about to get rarer. Because as I mentioned to you before we went on the air, Brian, to live a longer, more peaceful life, I could have the Monroe brothers put the action figures and the stock of merchandise in my garage in a landfill, and it wouldn't affect my standard of living, and it would be easier than going through this shit. I've said, how long have we been talking on a multiple time per week basis since we've been doing these programs? More than 5 years, half a decade. And a lot of people think, well, Cornette would have hate this, or Cornette's head must be exploding in Louisville when he sees this television program that's going on and what they did. No, for one thing, I never watch anything live. And for another thing, I don't give a fuck. When I'm talking about it here on the program, I express what I need to say. Do you ever hear me answering the phone? Hold on.
Too often.
Whoever you are, I don't give a fuck, and I'm doing something. I don't recognize your number, and I'm sick of hearing from you people. There. Now.
That'll show them.
How often do I talk to you on the phone where I'm going, oh, goddamn, can you see that match? I hate that. Oh, my God, my head's on fire.
Never.
How often have you heard me say this goddamn internet, this goddamn website, this goddamn Wi-Fi, this fucking goddamn technology? Fuck this. I'm going out of my mind.
I can say, as someone who speaks to you probably more than almost anyone outside of your wife, the maddest I've ever heard you on multiple occasions has all been based around technology.
Yes.
And the internet specifically.
Because nobody knows how this shit works. Even the people selling it. It's been the limited, unlimited server. So anyway, so now, by the way, if you did place an order and get a confirmation email, and boy, those look lovely too. I saw a couple of those when they went out. Then you're going to get your stuff. About 50 people actually got to buy something in the 4 or 5 minutes Saturday or Sunday before everything went to shit again. And then apparently, I don't know how, if they were waiting for 24 hours, how instantly they knew to get on. But old Hotchkiss did say that on Sunday morning, in the course of the time before we got a hold of it and pulled it back down because it wasn't all functioning right, he said, well, you did enough megabytes or gigabytes or I don't know, pepperoni bites or whatever the fuck the phrase is, as some of the sites that commercial sites do it a week. That's why I don't care. I wanted all the server. But anyway, so if you ordered it, you're going to get it it'll be in the mail within a week or so because there's 50 of them.
And print out those confirmation emails. Those are the latest collector's items.
Those are going to be, because those may be the only ones that ever go out. Because as I said, now what I've done, besides me being pissed off, I not only pissed off the cult of Cornette, I false advertised for a month. And I know a lot of people, you dared us, and they're taking it in good fun because they crash it. But no, this was supposed to be uncrashable. And it was also not supposed to give me fucking more heart failure. So we pissed off fans, false advertised people, wasted their time. And so many people were in the cart trying to check out when we pulled it back down because everybody couldn't get in, that then those people got pissed off and they were like, and it's gone. So I blame myself because when this was a nice little cottage industry that we had going on, for years everything was fine. And then suddenly I get popular and I blow up everything. And I can't fucking do the merchandise by myself. And you know the odds of me ever allowing anyone else to have any part in this are astronomical. So I got big enough to fail is what I did. But I apologize to everybody who was wasting their time trying to get these fine products that now apparently I'll be selling every once in a while out of the side of my garage. Because elsewise, I'm going to blow up the internet again, and we might need it one of these days. We might be on DEFCON 4, and the whole country's on alert, and I put action figures on sale and blow up the whole goddamn mainframe, and then we don't know what the fuck's coming.
Wouldn't that be one for the history books?
Well, there wouldn't be any history books.
We were close to the end, and then this man put these figures on sale, and that was the end.
Yeah. But they got unlimited. And that's when I told Hotchkiss, you've heard the comedian James Gregory, the funniest man in America, tell the story of when he was invited to fly on a private plane, I assume. Everybody's heard that story from James Gregory.
I'm not sure if everyone knows who James Gregory is.
Well, then you're all short-sighted. Look him up. James Gregory, the funniest man in America. That's his gimmick. Anyway, he said in his very eloquent Southern way of speaking, he said, one time I was invited to speak at a fine convention up there in Chicago. And they were going to fly me and some of my co-workers and people affiliated with that event on a private aircraft from down here in Georgia all the way up to Chicago. And we were there at the airplane or at the airport, and we were in line preparing to board that fine aircraft, and the pilot greeted each one of us, shook our hands, and said, "And sir, how much do you weigh?" And the people, as they got on the plane, would answer that. And when it came my turn, he said, "And sir, how much do you weigh?" I said, "And sir, why is it you ask?" And he said, "Well, we want to know how much gasoline to put in the airplane." I said, "Well, hell, fill it up." That's what I wanted with the server. I wanted to be filled up with server instead of PUD. There's that word again. So anyway, if you weren't muted, you'd be snickering in the background, you gutter-minded individual.
I certainly have been over here.
But anyway, the point is, so folks, here's the thing. Now, apparently, after we've unlimited the unlimited server and everything else had passed all the checks and exams and everything, we should be able to put that website up except for one thing. Number one, I'm goddamn pissed off and I'm off the whole fucking idea. And number two, as I've told Hotchkiss, if we put it up and something else happens to it, I will kill you. It will be slow and painful, but I'll have to go to prison. So I don't trust it anymore. I've been fed up with as you have just testified, with this whole fucking internet fiasco for a long time. And as far as I'm concerned right now at this moment, JimCornette.com will remain an angry placard telling people that we had a great site and it didn't fucking work. So I don't know when or if this shit will ever go on sale again, and I could care less. How's that? And I apologize to everybody whose weekend was disrupted trying to go through all this shit. But again, nobody knows how this shit works. I went through them with Go Fight Live, for fuck's sake, 10 years ago.
Oh, my God.
Nobody knows how this shit works, and nobody, even the people selling it. And as I've made, when you bought something back in the good old days, you got a booklet that told you how it worked and how to use it. Now they just hand you all this internet shit. There, figure it out. Anyway, so the Cornette's collectibles will be rarer than ever in the future, because I ain't going out in public, and apparently I'm not selling anything from my home. But we got a fine program today, right?
We can hope. We can certainly hope.
God damn, that was a full-throated endorsement.
Well, we will do our best, but you never know what happens. The wind could blow any way it wishes. That Mother Nature is quite the bitch.
Wind could blow anyway. Well, why don't you go ahead and blow me then?
Well, I won't be, but Mother Nature possibly would be blowing you. But, well, of course, we want to wish a Happy New Year to all the Jewish listeners of Jim Cornette's Drive Thru right here, the big show, and, of course, also Jim Cornette's Experience.
Except Hotchkiss. Just in case Hotchkiss is Jewish, Hotchkiss, that doesn't count for you.
I don't think Featherbottom is a Jewish name. As a proud Jewish boy, I think I could safely say Featherbottom is not a Jewish name.
Well, he was adopted.
Oh. The
so
Featherbottoms.
I could check other things, but he may not have one by the time I get finished with him.
What you guys do in your private time is up to you. But let's get some questions here on the show. Or
reviews.
Or reviews.
We've got 17 programs to talk about.
Well, you ended up watching, I saw Rampage, and then I saw the pay-per-view, obviously.
Yes.
I didn't watch SmackDown. You watched SmackDown?
Well, not really. Not really. Because here's what I was at the Memphis airport in the day of the Jerry Lawler Hulk Hogan match in 1981 in the Coliseum, and I was shooting pictures of Lawler around town in Memphis for a magazine spread, stuff that we were going to sell on the merchandise tables and everything. But this guy came up to him in the airport, obviously recognized him. Lawler went went to the Delta counter. And no, it was Northwest, because there was a Northwest hub, Memphis. And just said, hey, can I get on a plane, take some pictures? Oh, it's Jerry Lawler. And they took us in the cockpit of a fucking 747 that was sitting, that wasn't leaving at that point. And I've got pictures of Lawler flying the fucking 747 in the cockpit, right? It was on the ground. But anyway, guy recognized him. We were walking through, and he starts talking to him. He said, well, my kids, they watch the wrestling. I don't watch that much, but I'm walking through the living room whenever they're watching it. I see some things, and then he proceeded to recount everything in chronological order that Lawler had done for the last 5 years. And Lawler said, "You must walk through the fucking living room a lot." But anyway, I was walking through the TV room Friday night, at like 8:15 or whatever, and because I was DVRing SmackDown, it had popped up, it was on the screen. I hadn't been watching TV in that room, but I see Heyman. And I see the interview that he does, and I said, okay, I have to, without fail, watch the rest of this show just to see anything else that Paul Heyman does, because that was fucking brilliant. I loved it. So I went back on Sunday when I didn't have to worry about fucking monitoring my website, and I zipped through to find things of interest in SmackDown, because after all, now there's competition on Friday nights, even if they're not head-to-head. It's Friday night wrestling program, so let's see what's going on both sides of the street, right? We got one side, we got chicken, the other side, we got hamburgers. Let's see which one is tastiest. So And by the way, I'm grumpy because now I'm at 7-ounce cans on the Sprite, folks. The Sprite Zero shortage continues. Anyway, on SmackDown on September 3rd, the Usos took on the Street Profits in a tag team match in the opening match, and they started having a fight on the floor, and a referee called for the DQ. And people even in the building were like, what the fuck is that all about? But Roman Reigns is not happy, and he's going to tell Paul to, bring me the Usos, right? So this is when Paul Lee walks out, and he's talking into his cell phone. Boy, I wish he'd have hit me with the phone he's got now instead of the fucking phone he had in 1989. God damn. Anyway, he's surprised by the girl interviewer, and I can't remember her name, and she never gets a chyron to ID her lower third or anything, but she scares him, comes up behind him, and he gives one of the most brilliant performances. As soon as he starts talking to her, his phone starts ringing Brock Lesnar's theme music. And he looks at it like he's suddenly realized he's got a giant turd in his hand, and she's there, and he hits the button where he's not going to answer it, and he's trying to play it off, and then it rings back immediately, right? And he answers it and has a one-sided conversation that would make Bob Newhart eat his fucking heart out. You heard what Brock Lesnar was saying and the way he was saying it based on the responses or humana-humanas or facial expressions or just the way that Paul did this. I can't do it justice, but it was brilliant. And it didn't look phony. It didn't sound funny. It looked like an uncomfortable hype man Slimy on his telephone talking to a disgruntled client who he knows is going to cause trouble for his current client. Anyway, that was brilliant. And then he turns around to walk off and runs into Big E in a janitor's outfit, laughing maniacally for some reason and holding his Money in the Bank briefcase, and that ruined the whole mood. But until then, Paul Heyman is a genius. That was amazing. Becky Lynch did a promo live in the ring. She's over, but I don't really care. Bianca Belair, who she just fucked around at SummerSlam, right? Or SummerSham, or whatever it was. She comes, yeah, SummerSham. She comes out to the ring laughing and skipping to get in the ring and then talk to the girl that screwed her out of the belt, and I still don't care. Dolph Ziggler was in the back, and he's hitting on Toni Storm, offering to let her sit in his corner, but she's rooting for Boogs. You know Boogs. Boogs or Booger? I think we ought to call him Booger, the guitar player. The lost Powell cousin. There was Gomer, there was Goober, and there's Booger. Boogs played the guitar, and I emergency fast-forwarded. Nakamura came out and was having more seizures.
Emergency fast-forwarded?
Emergency fast-forward. I was afraid that I would catch the seizures from Nakamura. Booger beat Ziggler flat in the middle of the ring in 1 minute and 30 seconds. He only did 3 offensive moves, and all of them looked like he was doing them for the very first time. And thanks for coming, Dolph Ziggler. Rollins had a match with Cesaro, and suddenly everything picked up. Everything picked up as far as the pace and the action and the level of work. Those guys look great. It would have been better if they were somewhat more over because of the rotten booking, especially that they've done with Cesaro and this whole blasé television program they were on. But Cesaro had a great comeback. People were with him. He did like a 20 fucking revolution big swing. And Rollins rolls out on the floor, and Cesaro rolls out and goes to give him that charging uppercut forearm, and Seth Rollins hits him with a chair. DQ, ding, ding, ding. I felt like Shitstain was booking this. They'd had like 3 matches, and 2 of them were disqualifications. And then Rollins hits him several more times with a chair, breaks the chair support off. Remember when they were doing that thing with him and Edge? He breaks the chair support off the metal rod then and crossface Cesaro with it. Nobody's ringing a bell. No referees are coming out. no security, there's no jeopardy. Then a few referees come to the ringside and just wave their arms from the floor and like, no, no, no. Oh, don't hurt him, Andy. The storm's coming. And then he curb stomped him after he'd done all that while everybody's just watching him do it. And then he gets another chair, and 3 referees have rolled in the ring now, but have to bail out like he's goddamn Abdullah the Butcher with a fucking fork and wave their arms some more. And Cesaro has to continue to act like he's completely unconscious and immobile so he can get his head put on a chair. And then finally, Edge runs out with a chair and Rollins bails. They could have taken 2 minutes out of the middle of that where nobody gave a fuck because it was going on forever with a slow pace and wouldn't end, and just had him threaten to bash the guy's brains in and let Edge come out and save him, and it might have flowed a little bit. But are you sorry you missed this so far?
You know, the more you talk about it, the better AEW sounds and looks.
Well, we'll get there.
Other than Heyman and Roman, I mean, there are certain guys on that show that are top flight stars in any era of wrestling and are performing at an elite level. I hate to use that word, but at an elite level right now. And Heyman, of course, is just, I mean, he's an all-time great at this point. And Roman Reigns is really great. And typically whoever Roman's been working with, it's been pretty good. But everything on the show to get to that point sucks. And it's just excessive silliness. Even when there's something serious, it has to end with the silliness. Like you said, Big E's in the hallway fucking a mop or whatever you said he was doing.
Dressed as a janitor. Actually, we don't know what he was doing with the mop because we only caught the tail end of it. But
it's a hard show to get through, and you watch it and you know the realities of who's watching. And you see who's in the audience, and you just wonder, who are they actually doing this show for? I mean, you know the answer. The answer is Vince. This is a show. This whole production's all for Vince's enjoyment. But it's not good. By and large, other than the top of the card stuff, it's not good. It's not good at all.
Well, speaking of which, we go back to the locker room of the tribal chief. And he's sitting in this big chair, Reigns is, and Paul is on his knees like he's at confession on the side of the chair, leaning over. My tribal chief, we have a problem with Brock Lesnar. And Reigns says, you got a problem with Brock Lesnar. And Paul says, Brock Lesnar is going to be at Madison Square Garden next Friday night. Right? Very good episodic television.
Why, are Nickelback playing?
No, that's where the Smackdown is.
Oh.
But see, they've already announced that. So I'm sorry I didn't make that clear. But anyway, when he says Brock's going to be at Madison Square Garden next Friday night, then Reigns is smiling, but then all of a sudden he starts looking more serious and he says, how do we know he's not here tonight? Dun, dun, dun. So I'm well, let's see what's going to happen.
By the way, without seeing it, I can visualize Heyman the way you described it.
Yes.
Like I said, he's just the greatest. He's an all-time great.
It's the grovel. He's just a deferential to this man in every way.
He always knows what he should do. No matter what situation he's in, he knows what he should do.
If it doesn't involve going off his feet, because then it gets ugly real quick.
Or returning money, yes.
It turns into football fucking monkey area real quick. But anyway, that was followed by In the Ring, the Kevin Owens show, where he's wearing his T-shirt with a tie, so you know it's a big deal. And out comes Happy Corbin. He's pulled up in the Rolls Royce or whatever, and out comes Happy Corbin. And I'm just sitting there, and obviously I'm not going to watch this whole thing because it went for a while. But I said, Kevin Steen didn't like the way he was booked in Ring of Honor. Well, be careful what you get upset about. He ought to weigh 400 pounds now from eating those words. And so basically he has to do this bit with a Happy Corbin. Then Logan Paul comes out. He's the YouTube fellow, right?
Yeah.
And his brother is the boxer? Or what's going on there? There's two of them?
They become fighters. One of them, and I actually don't know which one is which. One of them was on one of the Disney Channel shows my kids used to watch. And then the other one was his brother, and they both developed a following doing their own YouTube stuff. And then they got into trouble because I don't even know exactly what, but they put some stuff on their channel that they shouldn't have, and YouTube yanked them, I think, for a while. And then they went into boxing or MMA, and now they're worldwide celebrities, but they're kind of like, I don't know what the fuck they did. They create content that I never watch.
Well, some way or another, Kevin Steen got laid out flat of his face by a YouTube fuck and Baron von Raschke's wasted sperm with absolutely no rebuttal here. So that's the way that segment ended up.
So I didn't get to see this. Any notes on Happy Corbin? We've been watching the transition from a Baron to a Possum King to a man struggling and down and out.
Well, no, he won money in Las Vegas. That's why he's happy now, because now he's rich. This is fucking, I'm not going to, good God, I might as well watch the fucking, Muppet Show or fucking Nickelodeon or whatever the fuck. This is childishness. I don't care what he did. Sami Zayn had the next match. Boy, that's a karma there. Steen followed by Generico. Sami Zayn against Dominic Mysterio, and it's Zayn actually beat Dominic and won. So it's apparently just Steen that they're fucking with, seriously. Finn Balor did a promo talking about Roman Reigns because that's our TV main event, and they reminded us that he was the first ever Universal Champion when they made 2 world champions. He was the first ever Universal Champion 5 years ago, 2016, but he hurt his shoulder in that match and had to forfeit the belt the next night. And now he's finally getting his chance, and that still didn't make anybody think that he was going to beat Roman Reigns and win the title right here on SmackDown TV. However, I'm a fan of Finn Balor's, and we've been enjoying Reigns' stuff, and I want to see if Brock Lesnar does show up now that I've had my taint tickled about it, right? But as soon as Balor's making his entrance, he comes down the ramp, the Usos attack him. They kick the shit out of him on the floor. They throw him into the fucking barricade and then take I believe didn't they beat him up with the metal stairs? And yeah, they took the metal stairs and rammed them repeatedly into Finn Balor's midsection while he's against the barricade and effectively squishing him. And then they threw him in the ring. And then music played and the Street Profits came out and ran off the Usos. And guess what they did, Brian? They all just fought off. Fought off. Balor's laying in the ring. He's got to have internal hemorrhaging. You would have bought it by this point if he was spitting up blood. And now they play Reigns' music. And now, seriously, and by the way, there was a graphic at this point. The rematch that tonight, as we're recording this, Monday night on Raw, it's yesterday by the time you folks hear this, Charlotte versus Nia Jax, the rematch. I'm already DVRing it.
Nia Jax.
Her too.
You're going to watch it? I don't know. It'd be fun to watch it live again on the show.
Well, I came with my DVR up here in my office.
Oh, that's true.
Well, whatever, we'll work it out, but we got to see this.
Yes.
Because let's see what's going to set up. Is anybody going to set off a powder keg or are they going to be powder puffs? Anyway, so Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman come in the ring. The people are now that didn't want to do anything about it to begin with. Medical people and referees, they're checking on Finn Balor now that the damage has been done. I've been hammered multiple times with steel stairs by 2 giant Samoan guys, so he's a little sore. And then they do the introductions. And then they start the match. And it worked. God damn it. Oh. I know it's a classic age-old wrestling angle for some heel to come out and fucking do some kind of damage to a babyface before his championship match. But then he doesn't want to give up the opportunity and forfeit, so he fights on with the damage, right? That's old as the hills. However, this was past felonious assault and nobody was even trying to stop it. And then they go through in-ring introductions and it looks so bizarre to the viewer who's wanting something to make sense and doesn't just accept the way that wrestling's been done for the last 10 years or whatever. Anyway, after the introductions, the match starts and they go less than 3 minutes and go to a break. So this has been entrances, angle, introductions. They finally get started with this match and they go to a break with less than 3 minutes into it. When Finn Balor's entrance started, they had 25 minutes on the air, and they came back from this break with 10 minutes left, if it tops, on the show. So Finn Balor finally beaten senseless with stairs by two Samoans, shit kicked out of him through most of this match by Roman Reigns, made a comeback, hit the double foot stomp off the top, and got a 2 count on Reigns. And then Roman Reigns kicked out, rolled over on top of him, punched the mat in the vicinity of Finn Balor's head several times, and then just put a front face lock on him and choked him out. And that was it. So it was a great false finish. And he just rolled over, and he was doing the supposed ground and pound where the forearm goes close enough by the head and hits the mat that he thinks you'll buy it, but you won't because the camera angle clearly shows it's bullshit. And then he actually just put a front face lock on him and wrenched back and choked him out. And that was the end of that.
Sure.
And now are you jealous?
No. Now I'm glad I didn't watch it. I think to most people, SmackDown is not a palatable show.
I don't think it goes down well. I don't think it tastes good. And I think that's indicative of our entire broken food system, Brian. Do you know that our food system is fundamentally broken and it's making us sick? And do you know that the people at Uprising Food are fixing that? Folks, when you think about a broken food system, think about the people at Uprising Food. Uprising's mission is to liberate all of us from a broken food system that is stealing our health. That's their mission in life. They're our new friends here. Uprisingfood.com here at the program. They want to liberate us from a broken food system, and they've cracked the code on healthy bread. And I'm going to tell you what, the amazing amount of fiber that this bread and these chips that they are marketing have, it's amazing. It's good for gut health. I was reading the packaging.
And protein.
And we don't get enough fiber and things for gut health. There's only 2 net carbs per serving in this healthy bread, 6 grams of protein, 9 grams of fiber. It's amazingly, amazingly difficult to make a good tasting, healthy bread like this. And I guarantee you, folks, when you taste this stuff, you're going to be shocked. But they cover paleo, clean keto, simple, low carb, high fiber, dairy-free, grain-free lifestyles. They've made prebiotic fiber delicious. Imagine what it tasted like before.
Yuck.
And they've got a patent-pending breakthrough in psilocybin husk activation.
The husk?
Psychedelic?
They're going to activate the husk?
Well, wait a minute. No, it's not psilocybin. I'm sorry. Maybe that's why I came down so quickly. It's psyllium. They've got a patent-pending breakthrough in psyllium husk activation that makes fantastic digestive health absurdly easy. It's positively ludicrous what you're going to find with these fine products. All the Uprising products are baked with real superfood ingredients: almonds, MCT oil, apple cider vinegar, egg white, psyllium husk, and olive oil. I know at least 2 of those things are edible. Uprising
they're all edible.
They're all edible. Okay, this just in. Every single thing you can consume in these products. Uprising has absolutely nailed the taste factor to the wall on these things, boy. To the wall. They've got the Freedom chips that taste like those old school rye chips that they used to make you eat in school.
They used to make you eat them?
Well, they kind of forced them on me, but hey, some people went willingly. Folks, I'm told about the people at Uprising Food. If a biohacker and a high-end farm market baker had a baby, it would be Uprising products. I'm not sure what it would taste like, that baby, but in between.
No, you don't eat the baby. You don't eat the baby.
Don't eat the baby.
No.
I'm sorry, but I'll tell you what. No, in all seriousness, folks, the products from uprisingfood.com will prolong your life. I guarantee you personally that if you eat a piece of this stuff every day for the rest of your life, you'll feel like you're living forever. Right now, go to uprisingfood.com and use the code JCE to get $10 off the starter bundle. It's kind of like a mini trip to the grocery store minus all the unhealthy distractions and food and things. And they ship it directly to your door. That's uprisingfood.com. Use my code JCE to get $10 off your order. Make sure your gut health is in good shape and eat healthy and consume mass quantities of these fine food-related things.
We've become a big fan of it here in the house. Got into a little bit of trouble because of it the other day, but a fine product.
What? No, certainly she was able to find toilet paper.
That's not what I'm saying. First of all, it's a fine edible product. Let me stress that.
Yes. You consume it like you do food.
But it shows up, it's a little box, and I'm looking at it, and it says bread, and I'm thinking, do I cook this? What is this? And you open it up, and no, it's a fresh loaf of their bread. And where I got into trouble was I wanted to try it, but I wanted to try what it would taste like thin as well as thick. So I cut at the top thin, and I kind of went down, and it got really thick at the end. So everyone else who wanted to try it after me, they kind of had a messed up slice, but I liked it.
So you couldn't just do the same thing that you did, but upside down and cut it off even so that the children could have even bread-related products?
I didn't think I had to do that. I thought someone else in the house could handle that.
Well, they didn't know that.
Do I have to do everything?
You have to do everything. They're children, for heaven's sake.
And I wanted to get away from it as fast as I could because I was going to eat it all.
Well, then that's a bad thing for a parent to do. You can't eat all the children's food. Try it out on them first. See what happens. 2 or 3 days later, if they're okay, then you jump right in. Uprisingfood.com. Code JCE. $10 off.
Give it a try. Speaking of the children, Jim, did you watch Rampage on Friday night?
Yes, I did. Malachi Black is different. Malachi Black is well-spoken, has a good voice, looks like a freak. He's a weirdo-looking, spooky-looking guy. He's from Amsterdam. That's his hometown. He's got spooky lighting. He's got music. He's got great-looking gear. Well, great-looking for this motif he's going for. They had good camera work on his entrance. The guy has an aura. That's the way we open the show. But then old Big Shoddy Lee... He's still very shoddy. He got an entrance after that. I'm like, couldn't you had him in the ring just for the sake of this? It's national television. Because I was assuming that since Malachi Black has kicked the shit out, literally, out of Arn Anderson and Cody Rhodes, and who else did he take? He took somebody else out with a kick the other week.
Brock Anderson.
Then I figure, okay, Lee gets a couple of little flurries and he one tackle pancake, and we're going to get Malachi Black over, right? So I didn't see that. What I saw was a competitive match. I know Malachi Black dismantled Cody Rhodes, a top guy, right? That was another one of those one-sided Cody, see you later, I'm gone for a while, but he put the guy over, right?
That's right.
This went through a fucking break. And I'll tell you, first of all, they announced old Shoddy at 180 pounds. He's tall. He looks like he's close to 6 feet tall. He's not emaciated. They could say 200 pounds, and I would buy it if they said it. I wouldn't, if I was the average fan, I definitely wouldn't be looking through it. But they announced him at 180 pounds. So this goddamn monster movie come to life has a 180-pound guy as an opponent that is one of the underlings of the people that he's really going after, and we're leading toward Dustin, etc. And at first, Malachi Black started toying with him, and Lee Johnson was doing the ducking and dodging, kind of a herky-jerky headlock. Malachi Black was barely moving around. I like it. Finally, then Malachi Black gets pissed and took over and started kicking the shit out of Lee Johnson. I thought, okay, here we come. Couple minutes, maybe he misses something. Lee gets a comeback or drop kick or whatever, and then boom. No, they went to break. They created this aura around Malachi Black with the entrance and this underdog opponent, and they gave him a little flurry, and then the fucking star that you're pushing takes over and starts kicking the shit out of the guy, and you go to the break. They killed the buzz. They made it competitive with that move. That's just bad formatting. They come back from the break, and the first thing you see is Lee Johnson hits Malachi Black with 7 punches and a drop kick and a dive to the floor and wipes him out, and then hits a splash off the top. I wrote, Malachi Black is going for this, ? Tony Khan allowed this, ? Somebody thought, does anybody know how to get over anymore? ? This is insane! ! I love you, period. Anyway.
I love you who?
Don't remember the song? Dan Baird. I love you, period. Do you love me? ? Oh, God. You're hopelessly lost on your mid-90s country rock.
You're damn right I am.
Dan Baird was a member of the Georgia Satellites and also did it Keep Your Hands to Yourself.
I hated that song, always.
Please, please, ! I want to hold you in parentheses. Anyway, then Malachi Black took back over and hit Lee Johnson with a bunch of shit. And all in the corner that he couldn't bump for. And then this is where it went to shit. Instead of convincingly, quickly, and decisively beating this fucking guy and pinning him and trying to get over, Malachi Black goes outside the ring, pulls a chair out from under the ring. The corpse referee, Rick Knox, the Blob, actually, he's an emaciated blob, stands there and watches him do it. He slides the chair in the ring. The referees just say, well, I don't think you ought to do that. Malachi Black hands Lee Johnson the chair. All the action has stopped. Malachi Black turns his back and offers Lee Johnson a free shot, but of course Lee Johnson won't take it because he's a sportsman. So Malachi Black turns around, and as Lee Johnson is deciding whether to hit him in the face or not, he just hits Lee Johnson with his finish kick, boom, and the referee counts 1, 2, 3. The guy that just got kicked, the chair drops, and the referee just counts it. What is this shit? And the first thing, well, by the way, when he was coming in the ring, Mark Henry, who's still not used to being in the Bizarro world, said you could tell legitimate puzzlement in his voice. Why doesn't the referee take the chair away from him? Because that's what everybody else is saying too, except the people that are immersed in this Bizarro world where it's only convenient every once in a while for the referee to actually enforce a rule. But after Malachi Black won this match, a new star that has already been making an impact, that has already put out Cody Rhodes, and has already kicked Arn Anderson, and blah, 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 and is cutting these great promos, and this win was for him. Excrement was asking the question, we'll never know if Lee Johnson would have used that chair. And we'll never care either. This should have been all about Malachi Black. They don't know how to do this. And apparently Malachi Black don't know how to do this. He's trying to do spooky mind games with job guys that is overly dramatic and phony. And the average guy who doesn't live their life in this fucking fantasy world that the elite fans build for themselves on the internet because they're out actually working real jobs and or getting real pussy, they're going to wonder, why did that badass tattooed looking motherfucker give that skinny guy a chair to hit him, and then we don't understand? What'd you think? Oh, and by the way, then Dustin ran down and Malachi Black bailed from that. But I actually wanted this guy to be good, and he still is good, but I wanted this. It's the worst booking fuck up of a new heel that I've ever seen, doing fake bullshit while making a job guy competitive. It was sports entertainment style wrestling. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's plenty of bad ways to book a new heel that we've seen. I will say first, he has a very soothing voice. I find it very relaxing when he does his promos. I can almost take a nap. But the match was too long and too competitive, and that isn't in any way a shot at Lee Johnson. It's just that's not what's right now for Malachi, who you're building up. And that's it. Too long, too competitive. I like Malachi. Look, the decision to do the match this way may not have been the best, but everything he's done, his kicks look great. His promos are different. He's doing them in a different way. He stands out. I don't know how long is he gonna do the makeup on the eye forever? I don't know when that ends. But I've liked Malachi so far. I really have. And I want to see him and Dustin. That's going to be good.
I do too. And I'm worried about him now because everything else has been good. But if he thought, because nobody would have come up with that spot and told him to do it. And I'm sure he would have questioned them if they had, because if it wasn't his idea, he'd go, what the fuck? Are you insane? So in some fashion in his head, he thought that doing this dramatic sports entertainment bullshit with offering a man a chair was better than just beating the job guy. I don't fucking. So I'm worried about him. Who knows what? Is he another one of these guys that's loopy?
I'd like to see him and Punk down the road.
Well, I would too, except if he hands Punk a chair to hit him over the head with.
No, they could both sit down Indian style in the ring and stare at each other.
Well, we'll get to that. That's not till the pay-per-view. Anyway, also on Rampage from this past Friday night, Miro came out and did an interview. I didn't really care. But then Eddie Kingston came out, and I said, okay, I'll listen a little bit. Apparently, now on TNT, you can just say bullshit, goddamn, whatever the... Are they going to use up the ability to... Do they have a quota, or is it just free now? They can say shit and bullshit and piece of shit and carny piece of shit. Are they going to wear that out where it doesn't get a pop anymore?
I don't think so. And I also think specific to Eddie Kingston, he's a New York guy, and it's a natural thing, and he sounds natural delivering those lines. Not even delivering those lines, saying those things. So if anyone's going to curse, I'm okay with it being Eddie Kingston.
Well, I'm not, but I'm just astonished at the things you can say on if we'd have said any phrase related to shit on TBS, which there was no TNT, 30 years ago, we'd have never seen the light of TV again. And now they're okay with it. But people don't even know. You told me the other day that it would be offensive if I was to ever, and that's why I would never do this, but it would be offensive if I referred to some unknown female wrestler as the president of the Itty Bitty Titty Committee. You told me that would be offensive, and so I didn't do that. But people can say bullshit on live national free cable.
First of all, for the record, I didn't tell you I would be offended. I told you there will be some people out there.
You said people would be offended. Right. Yes.
People will be offended, and someone will say, oh, look what he said. He's I haven't done the voice in a while.
But you can say bullshit on basic cable. Can't say itty bitty titty. I'm just making these notes of all this.
You can say titty. It's about the way you use the word titty and how. Well,
itty and bitty isn't even as bad a word as titty.
But it is you're not saying titty. Look at those titties. You're saying no titties, and you're saying it in a way that makes it a negative thing.
Well, it is.
No, actually, not if you're athletic or happy with it. I'm sure you're fine.
Well, I used to know a girl many years ago that had a T-shirt that said "Itty Bitty Titty Committee" on it. She was proud of them.
I knew someone who had a shirt that said 30 and dirty. It doesn't mean that their logo on their shirt represents the lifestyle of everyone within that range. I'm sure there are plenty of people. There's a reason women get breast augmentations.
I'm just saying that on the scale of obscene and or unsavory words, itty and bitty are not even as bad as titty. And titty has never been as bad as bullshit.
But it's the itty and bitty in conjunction with the titty that's the issue. Not the titty and not the itty and the bitty. When you put them all together, that's what causes the problem. To someone, somewhere.
We'll have to send that out to committee. Anyway. So then Kingston did a promo on Miro's stupid God. And is he totally talking about Miro's individual God, or is he slipping in some atheism here?
I think he was with him. I think he was slipping in some atheism here. It was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of rolled his eyes when he did it. So that kind of hooked me there. And then Kingston charged, and Miro bailed out, and Kingston went after him, and Miro hit him with a belt shot, and they got a fight in the ring, and no bell, and no referees, and no security. And Kingston hits Miro with a DDT, and then they played Kingston music, and it was another wrestling skit. Why can't they just, if they've, and again, to be honest, if they put the effort in to make these things look legitimate, still when you have 4 or 5 of them in the same show, it just loses all legitimacy anyway. But you could make efforts to not make this look like a set-up wrestling skit off the South Park episode, complete with music cued and playing at the right points when the impromptu brawls break out.
That's a big issue all over AEW, the music being played at the right moment, perfect timing for whatever's going to happen. And of all the things to complain about, it ain't going to be this for me. I've enjoyed every Miro segment since he's gotten away from Kip Sabian. I think he's great. I thought Eddie Kingston was great here on the mic, had the crowd with him. Everyone loves a D's Nuts joke, and now he's owned it. He's got a t-shirt with it on it. I like this segment. I thought this segment was probably the best thing on the whole show.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I want to like this. I didn't particularly care about Miro to begin with. Just, I know he's looked better since he got rid of Pip and quit being the best man at the wedding or whatever. But Kingston brought it up, so I'm okay. And they're going to have a fight. And then they have a fake wrestling angle instead of anybody trying to put some oomph in this and some jeopardy and have some chaos and have people.
Yeah.
You don't. How can you get heat when you're doing something when the something is so dastardly and horrible and dangerous that absolutely nobody in the company is trying to stop you from doing it? That's my problem. Anyway,
highlight of the show.
Highlight of the show. Well, there you go. That's on the Ole Anderson scale. The handicap match was next with Reba and Jamie Hayter against Chris Flatlander. And I'm just wondering, does this mean the winner of this match is the one that doesn't come out of this thing handicapped? Did she hurt anybody?
Oh, no one got hurt that I'm aware of.
All right, well, good.
She tries hard.
Mark Henry did the split screen with 2.0 and Danny Garcia and Darby Allen and Sting. And I swear to God, in this camera shot, if you go back, 2.0 and Garcia together, I don't know whether they looked like stars of Saved by the Bell or outtakes from Blue Boy magazine.
Oh, stop it. Will you stop?
Either one. But anyway, then we come to the entrance. CM Punk, music, signs, excitement. He dove into the crowd over the rail, not as a wrestling dive, but just as a, hey, catch me dive. And they did. And then as they stand him up, did you see the guy at the railing offer him a beer?
I saw Punk's face.
And yeah, Punk thinks, where have you been for 20 fucking years, right?
Yeah, really.
But anyway, and then he's going to do color for the main event. So at least we got the Punk entrance in. And the main event is, of course, Darby Allen versus Daniel Garcia, whose brothers-in-law are Daniel Garcia and 2.0. They are on every show, out of nowhere. Talk about the RKO. We've been mentioning this. It's amazing. They've got a couple of wrestlers that we sure would like to see more than once every 6 to 8 weeks, but we're looking at these guys multiple segments per show. Anyway, Daniel Garcia and Darby Allen have a combined weight of possibly 300 pounds. And I love Darby now, and especially after the pay-per-view. We'll talk about that here in a little while. But if you put him in with guys that almost looks like him physically, then you've you've made him less special. At this point, the thing that's special about him is he's smaller than everybody else, but he looks like he's actually trying to beat somebody up and uses it. But this visual looked like ultra-violent children's wrestling or two really pissed off anorexics. It didn't help the visual of this program to be taken as major, and there's CM Punk's voice. And by the match, within the first 1 minute, 60 seconds, Darby Allen dove backwards on the floor at a dead run, head first, over a table and landed literally on his head backwards, upside down on the floor in between the table and the railing. And then Garcia shot him into the ring steps. And then it's just, I couldn't. I'm going to see what the finish is, right? Because elsewise, I'm going to go out of my mind. So I fast forward to the finish, and both of them were selling, and Darby Allen grabs Daniel Garcia's legs and ties him up at his thing, 1, 2, 3. And then, of course, here come the heels in for the heat because, of course, it's a match on AEW television. So naturally, there's going to be an afterbirth. All the heels at ringside are going to jump in. Sting gets on Daniel Garcia. 2.0 are killing Darby Allen. Punk stands up, walks to the ring, and backs him off. And Darby Allen hits the dive out through the ropes onto the two of them. And then Punk and Darby are face to face. It was what it was, and Punk didn't get any on him. As far as the match, I can't, because this was the exact opposite of the best match that I've ever seen Darby Allen have, which was on the pay-per-view, and we'll talk about it. But this started out within the first 60 seconds with every worse instinct that Darby Allen has against a fucking guy that could use of Cheerios for a hula hoop. So I didn't care for the rest of it.
All right, that was Rampage.
Well, did you have any thoughts on the match?
I didn't mind the match. I thought it was all right. I like Punk on commentary. I thought Punk, there was a period of time on Raw a while back. I think maybe he was injured or something, where Punk did commentary.
And was good. I remember that. That's years ago.
I remember being upset that he was going to return to action because he was so fucking good on commentary on there. Punk was great. I personally wouldn't have done anything physical with Punk before the pay-per-view, but I could understand the argument for doing something physical with Punk before the pay-per-view. I would have just gone into that with a complete mystery. What can he throw a punch? Can he do anything? We haven't seen anything. I wouldn't have done anything.
Well, no, we
physical.
did. We saw remember the triple babyface finish giving thing? He did.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that either. That's my point. I wouldn't have done that. I would have not done anything physical with Punk. I like Daniel Garcia. He is skinny, but there are lots of skinny guys there. Is he skinnier than Sammy Guevara? I mean, there are other skinny guys there.
Well, that's the point, is if you've only got a couple and they're away from each other and they're on opposite sides and you can integrate them, it's not even noticeable. But when everybody looks like an emaciated high school kid, sooner or later, it's just a visual that's just...
I think there's a reason Daniel Garcia is there and getting some attention. I don't know if this attention will be
it's because
full blast going forward.
Whoever his sister married in the company, maybe one of the accountants. I mean, why else?
I think he shows
over some of the guys that are there that never get on TV.
Well, I agree with you about that. And we've talked about that with MJF and FTR and various other people. Even some of the people we don't like, they just randomly appear and then disappear off TV for months. But what I've seen from him, he's got good facial expressions. He's technically all right in the ring. Hopefully he fills out. I've got nothing against this. And I got nothing against this being the main event of the show that airs at 10 o'clock and the main event goes on at 11 or 20 to 11. I thought it was all right. I didn't think they did a great job on either show as far as it being a go-home. With that said, they apparently shattered every pay-per-view record they've ever had, but I think that's more about the matches than the actual build-up.
Yeah, the TV the Friday night before didn't make any difference whatsoever, positive, negative, or indifferent.
Right,
they were going to get it regardless at that point.
But, I guess that one episode with Punk was such a unique and special episode. I mean, it'll go down in wrestling history as one of the most special episodes of AEW show for sure, but even any wrestling show of the past 20 years. And I guess I kind of hoped that it would be up at that level, but kind of the show's going back and forth. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff. The Mark Henry segment has become a favorite of mine. I can't explain why I get such a kick out of Mark Henry, the sportscaster, but I do. Jericho sucks. Get Jericho off fucking commentary.
Now, wait a minute. The triple split screen, though, when there's two guys in one, three guys in the other, and Mark Henry's as wide as two guys in the middle, it's starting to get busy.
Not as busy as the commentary booth. I can't deal with Jericho yelling nonstop. It's bad. It's bad.
Well, you know what you need to do then?
What's that?
You need to watch the television program, but you need to customize what you're listening to. Have your own soundtrack. Play your own thing. March to the beat of your own drummer, Brian.
That's a great idea.
And you can do that easily with the Raycon earbuds. Folks, if you're wanting to create your own soundtrack and live your life to the beat of your own drummer, pop in your Raycon wireless earbuds. Just grease them up and stick them in your head. Actually, these new ones, you don't even need the grease. They come with a bunch of gel tips that are comfortable, and they don't stick out of your ears. There's no wires and stems and antenna and tuba-fours hanging out of the things. They start at half the price of the other premium audio brands, but they sound just as good. And they come with a 45-day happiness guarantee, so you can't lose because you get your money back if you're not filled with happiness. And we mentioned, and you poo-pooed at this, Brian, the other day, but they have a 32-hour battery life. So you can listen to what you want, when you want, for as long as you can stay awake.
I didn't poo-poo at that. I poo-pooed at the idea that you said I didn't have things that I could listen to for 32 hours straight, and I named several musical artists that I could listen to for 32 hours straight.
Well, you poo-pooed something, but I cleaned it up. Anyway, folks, if you want long, but you'll have to stick needles in under your fingernails to keep yourselves awake long enough to let these batteries run down. But nevertheless, the Raycon wireless earbuds help you create your own soundtrack, and they're available right now because the Drive-Thru listeners can get 15% off of their Raycon order at BuyRaycon, BuyRaycon, buyraycon.com/JCE. That's buyraycon.com/JCE to save 15% off everything you buy on their website, which apparently functions. Unlike mine, somebody figured this out.
That's right. Someone figured that out, and someone also figured out something that would be used here in a transition to get to AEW All Out 2021 in Chicago.
Well, how about we just go to it? You want to just go to it?
I thought that's what I did.
Well, let's go to it.
I brought you to the door.
Yeah. Well, let's kick open the forbidden door. Well, I'd really rather go behind the green door than the forbidden door. At least from all the trailers I've seen. Anyway.
Just the trailers, okay. All the trailers I've seen.
Yeah, all the trailers. Well, they had multiple trailers. You should have seen the one they sent out for Finland. Anyway, the All Out pay-per-view was September 5th, the Sunday, the day before Labor Day, and it was a long program. We got a lot at the end, but we had to suffer to get there. Should we start out at the top?
I think so.
Your favorite guy, probably your favorite match, Miro for the TV title against Eddie Kingston. I would have to say this would be your favorite match of the night, wasn't it, Brian?
I don't know if it was my favorite match of the night. I don't know if I would say that, but I did enjoy it. I did like it.
All right. Well, let me tell you what was wrong with it. They went at it like two bulls and started having a fight. And that's why I was thinking, is Miro schizo? How does he have this and what he's been doing as a monster when he came in for 6 months and was fully on board with being a silly skit-doing goof playing video games? And now said, oh, but I can do this also. Like, how? I don't understand how somebody can come. It was like bringing Abdullah the Butcher in and giving him Adrian Street's gimmick. But anyway, of course, the same things as normal, and especially in the opening match on a show. Prolonged fighting on the floor. Are they going to use the ring? The referee counts forever but never gets there. If you this was a very good example of two guys better than most doing every indie match ever these days, when you think about it that way. Excrement got to say a lot of Japanese names and words. They did the spot where they stood there and took turns hitting each other, because that's where all the indie guys try to be Japanese. Eddie Kingston worked his ass off, but I thought it got slower and less oomph as it went along. Two big pops at the end. Kingston and the camel clutch got the rope break, and then Kingston got a close false finish and the people got it. But then Kingston tried to run Miro into a bare buckle that the pad had been pulled off of, but the referee got in between the guys and the turnbuckles like, no, no, no. And then while he's standing right there, he actually looks up and to the right to make sure he doesn't see it. And Miro does the mule kick behind and nut shots Kingston, and then he hits him with a fucking kick. Boom, 1, 2, 3. It buried the referee. The booing started before the heel won, when the referee was being buried. So if every other match that they have didn't look a lot like this one, these two guys did a better job of it, but that was my feeling of the shortcoming of this one.
I didn't mind it. I liked it. Got the crowd into it. I think the crowd believed Eddie Kingston could win at a couple different points, which was good. Miro's been really great in this role. If I could say anything, not that I would have been a big fan of the Moxley-Kojima match in a vacuum, but having this match directly before that match, to me, really hurt that match in my eyes.
What do you mean, because they did all the same shit?
It was just, to me, it was too similar.
Oh, well, let's get to that then. Big Moxley and Satoshi Kojima. I did not know that Satoshi Kojima had been wrestling for 30 years. And neither would anybody else except the most dedicated of fan, except for the announcers beat it to death. So this guy's got to be almost 50 years old. He looked great, which is why you shouldn't tell people he's almost 50 years old. But now that I'm looking for a 50-year-old, but this, obviously, Moxley not only has the Japanese fetish, he's got the garbage match fetish. Now, by the way, did you hear he's actually going to challenge, or not challenge, but he's the new garbage wrestling champion, and he's going to defend against the bank-addicted drug robber somewhere in a field of mud outside the federal fucking limits of authority or something, wherever they do these things.
That's good, because he's kind of like the commercialized version of him anyway.
But that Tony Khan's allowing this. You got a big star on a national television program, but he's going to go off and fuck with these people. Anyway, so I'm waiting to see what this is going to look like. And they started out standing there letting each other chop each other and doing fake forearms. And then Kojima did a dive. And then Moxley did a dive. And then they had a fight on the floor. Does this sound familiar? Can they just tape one Moxley match and just keep replaying it so I can save the notes? Because there's never a difference. Kojima backs Moxley up in the corner and does the ridiculous rapid-fire chops with his left hand waving also, and his face looked like he's having a spasm. And I wrote, this is every indie-style match ever held. They traded fake punches on the apron. Did Kojima used to be better when he was like in his 20s or 30s or even 40s, and that's why he's a legend, or was he always about like this?
I've never watched much Kojima. He never interested me much, and it's important to note that when they said some of his accolades, when they repeated some of his accolades, and he held, this title at the same time as this title, it means something, but it doesn't mean the same as if Baba was alive and Inoki was running New Japan and he held titles at the same time. Different world completely, but I'm not a big Kojima guy.
Okay, well, I wrote, why are these unknown people brought in and made competitive with AEW's quote-unquote top stars? And who is supposed to be the babyface here? Moxley is more heelish.
Can I bring up a point?
Yes.
WrestleMania 7, for instance. Vince books Demolition. At that point, it's Smash and Crush to lose to Tenryu and Kateo. This was obviously to please their Japanese partner.
Yeah.
Do you see it the same way here, that they had, let's just say, and I'm not saying they had to get a New Japan guy, but let's just say to please their new friend, they've opened the forbidden door and all of a sudden people came marching through to please their friend. They're going to have one of their talents on what is, I think, their big show of the year, right? It's All In, All Out. It's the big show.
Yeah, can they ask for somebody that doesn't qualify for AARP? There would be a question.
I don't know.
And here's the thing. We know that excrement is in the Japanese bubble, and Uncle Dave the Guru is Japanese, and most of these fans Japanese, but this Moxley is one of their top fucking guys, and if they can't send a top guy for Moxley to be competitive with from New Japan, then they need to send somebody that he can beat in 8 minutes instead of doing the same fucking match with every Tom's dick is hairy just because they're from Japan. Everybody no-sold the clotheslines. More standing and hitting at each other. And finally, Moxley hit 2 of his double-arm DDTs and pinned him flat in a flat finish. And wait, there's more. God damn it. Music plays. Moxley is astonished. Everyone is puzzled because nobody knows who the music is. And then he comes out, it's Minoru Suzuki. And yes, he is a legend. And yes, he's also, how old is Minoru? See if you can find that information out. And he comes out, and he's fucking a badass, legitimately.
53.
He's 53 years old, and all the same people that knew who Kenji Shibuya in this match was also know who Minoru Suzuki is, but a lot of other people are going, if anybody, any new fans were brought in by CM Punk, they're all going, what the fuck? All they see is a guy with a funny haircut that's 4 inches shorter than Moxley, that's smaller than Moxley, that could probably stick Moxley's head up his ass in 30 seconds, but they don't know that. The announcers are shitting, but they're preaching to the choir again. But they might be able to build this up, especially if they do a package on Minoru Suzuki's incredible mixed martial arts accomplishments, blah, blah, blah.
They're not building anything up. They announced it for Wednesday.
But that's what I'm saying. But they could have made something out of this, but they announced the match for Wednesday, as in 4 days from then. And then they stood there, and Moxley and Suzuki took turns hitting each other with fake forearms and clotheslines that they weren't selling and laughing at each other in between. And everybody's smiling, and then suddenly Suzuki gives Moxley a pile driver and leaves him laying, and the people are cheering one of the top babyfaces in the company being laid out. Why? Why any of this? Were they supposed to cheer one of the top babyfaces in the company being laid out by somebody that's never been there before, and just because they're going to have a match on Wednesday?
I once went to a concert, and the main band was going to be the Strokes, and right before the Strokes came out, Jay-Z showed up and did a surprise set, and the people lost their minds because no one expected him to be there, even though he upstaged the Strokes, and even though I saw fucking Albert Hammond Jr. flip out on an amplifier because of this, because they didn't know Jay-Z was going to do this either, and it completely upstaged them, the place popped. The place went crazy. Minoru Suzuki, the people who are there who actually know who he is, and the people who are there probably know who he is, they love seeing him do whatever he's going to do to whoever it is, whether it's Moxley, whether it's Omega, whether it's Daniel Garcia. Whoever it was going to be, they were going to pop for Suzuki.
I know. Anyway, here we go again. Dr. Britt Baker with Reba and Jamie against Chris Flatlander with Pockets in the corner. And after this previous exhibition, to be honest, I walked away from this to go piss and get another 7-ounce can of Sprite and forgot to pause this. And I came back and it was already over with. And Pockets was involved, so it's not to be taken seriously. But how many times Did Chris Flatlander almost injure poor Britt Baker?
It wasn't that bad. It was all right. Britt Baker's super over. I can't say super over. And I've liked what I've seen, the little bits of Jamie Hayter so far. Reba is perfect in her role. Not a Pockets fan, but other than the fact that she's involved with the best friends who are deaf, and it's somewhat of a silly alien gimmick, other than that,
yeah. If she wasn't involved with the best friends, everything would be fine. Of course, her hometown is the Andromeda Galaxy, but
which I believe is in Suffolk County. But other than that, I think Statlander improves and has some potential. But like so many people there is potential, but we're experiencing everything on TV as opposed to there being another place for them to get ready for TV. But I think Statlander has potential.
Well, good. Then, I don't know how long on the show this entire segment took up, but thankfully they put the women's battle royal on afterwards for people to have time to get the taste out of their mouth of this thing. The cage match for the tag team title with the Hardy Boys against Felix and Penthouse. And my God, they went all out and hired not one but two different crummy rappers to rap the Lucha Brothers to the ring with a bunch of guys in costumes and masks and etc. I don't know how long this took, but I have the speed search on screen, so it was going a while to get rid of this. And so I just kept it going and got the Hardy Boys in the ring too. But that had to be, 10 minutes? Just to get them in the fucking ring?
I don't think it was that long, but...
Good Lord. Boy, we sold a bunch of Raycon earbuds when those rappers were going, I'll tell you that.
They weren't that bad.
Anything to block that sound out.
And it was good for a big entrance for the Lucha Brothers for the big event. I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah.
You don't like rap. It could have been anyone. It could have been a Hall of Fame rapper. It could have been Run DMC and you would have said, fucking rapper.
It sounded like somebody pulling a cat's bowels out through its sphincter. Anyway.
The modern sound.
Well, there you go. They put the cage match on in the middle. Once again, the Cucamonga kids, they couldn't figure out a way to sell Tony on putting them on first so that they could kill the whole show and get out of there and, not leave anybody else anything. So they had to go on after a few matches, but they still did the same thing. I was astonished. As soon as the bell rang, they started at 100 miles an hour in a four-way, doing gymnastics. The corpse referee stood and watched everything. They went through some choreography. It was a four-way the entire way, right? Because I didn't see a tag.
It was Young Buck style.
So it was a cage and a tornado match and constant meaningless stunts. So I fast-forwarded quite a ways, and then I stopped because Pieface put on a tennis shoe with thumbtacks stuck to the bottom of the tennis shoe and super kicked one of the Lucha Brothers. I'm serious that actually happened. And then I fast-forwarded some more on that, and I wrote, will this ever be over? And then they were all standing there super kicking each other over and over, and I fast-forwarded some more. And from the on-screen speed search, it looked like they hit pretty much every move and finish ever invented in wrestling ever. And then I think this has to be my favorite finish that's ever been done in AEW, Brian. Did you see what the finish was? What was wrong with the finish that they did?
I'm not sure.
They've got Penthouse is holding both of the Hardy Boys. They're all standing up, 3 in a row, right? In the ring. And Penthouse has them like fucking Superman grabs the Joker and Lex Luthor, the supervillains, and fucking hauls them off he's got them.
Weekend at Bernie's style.
Weekend at Bernie's style, right? And Felix is on top of this cage that has to be almost 20 feet high, legitimately.
And by the way, they do have a great cage. I have to say that is a great cage.
Nice cage. Spent a lot of money on a cage. Felix does a crossbody block off the top of the cage, and he jumped from the top of the cage. He was even higher than that. And he landed with a crossbody right onto all 3 of them. with his brother in the middle. Both of the Young Bucks that were on either side sold it like they'd had a fucking 100-pound sack of bricks dropped on them, which it probably felt like. The brother in the middle that took the brunt of it, as soon as Felix rolled off of him, he jumped right up to his feet. And then they grabbed Balding Buck and gave him another double-team piledriver-like finish. Boom, and that was 1, 2, 3. A 25-foot crossbody off the top of the cage wasn't enough to just say, hey, stay down. They jumped up to hit a finish after the guy hit that. And the guy that jumped up took the fucking majority of that goddamn blow. I couldn't fucking believe it. They weren't down 10 seconds. It was an immediate, as soon as they can jump up, I'll get to my feet. This was one of the more ridiculous, self-indulgent masturbation sessions that I've ever seen in a ring, where these children and these two Mexican psychopaths were allowed to just go out and just nonstop do every stupid thing. Nobody sold nothing. Everybody's fucking doing everything. They all look like a bunch of fucking children dressed up in goddamn birthday pajamas. It was the biggest mess. I can't. What they wrestle FTR once, beat them and send them home, but they wrestle these clowns every week and put them over. And now the Lucha Brothers are the tag team champions. So we got to see more of these shitty matches. Santana and Ortiz and FTR ought to goddamn go on strike.
You think we're going to get Santana and Ortiz versus the Lucha Brothers since they just beat FTR?
I'm afraid we are. And then that'll suck. Because the Lucha Brothers will be in it, and it won't make a lick of sense. And nobody's there to stop them. So I'm assuming, since I haven't been on the internet and ain't going to be the rest of this week, that all the Young Bucks fans thought this was wonderful. I couldn't even watch it. You can't even keep track of what's going on. You don't even know who's supposed to sell the moves they're doing. The guys that are doing the moves do more damage to themselves doing them than the guy that they're being done to. It's fucking lunacy. So anyway, that was that. Change my mind.
I'm not going to be able to change your mind. I don't think anyone can. I thought it was all right for what it was. I knew what to expect. It's a Young Bucks match. It's the Young Bucks referee. I know exactly what to expect. I thought that, and again, it's my sensibilities versus the AEW fans. But, the same way I hate the fucking spot, and it happened a bunch on this show, especially with Moxley, where you just stand there and you trade blows, and it's slow, and it's just stupid. I hate matches that all of a sudden just break down in the middle of the match into just stupidity. Like the thing with the shoe. Like, the idea of having some violent weapon and using it, it's fine, but just the match slowed down. They hammed it up for the camera. I wasn't crazy about that.
Who would be scared of that?
Who would be scared of Matt Jackson?
Small child is going to kick me with a shoe with thumbtacks on it.
There's not a human being on this planet that would be scared of Matt Jackson in any way if he was armed with 2 machetes and a fucking 4-head rifle. It would be impossible to be scared of him. But I'll give the Bucks, I guess, and Tony credit. They knew in advance. I think the Lucha Brothers had to win. Especially when you look at that reaction. And the Bucks are getting interesting heat. Because it's not we're fans of the Bucks, we're giving them heat. It's we're getting a little tired of the Bucks kind of heat, I think.
So they put the Lucha Brothers over to get the heat off themselves because they've been the Road Warriors for so long, but they can't put the actual good team over. Well, because that would stooge off to the whole world that, again, that FTR is so much better than they are and so much more professional.
The story will one day come out about them and FTR, but I'm just saying that if you look at that room and look at the reaction, and if you followed the match and didn't fast forward and just paid attention to the crowd, this was the right decision. They had to do the title change here. Had to be here.
People loved it. It was sort of like when Trump lost. It doesn't matter who won.
I have seen some people, and I'll say I enjoyed it clearly more than you, but I don't think it's one of the greatest cage matches of all time.
What?
Some people are saying that. That's a bit ridiculous.
Oh, boy. All righty. Well, speaking of great matches, we won't now because next was the Women's Casino Battle Royal. Who won?
Ruby Soho.
Good for her.
That was a big moment. The big pop, the debut of Ruby Soho, although I will say this. Tony Khan seems to have some pretty good musical tastes. I approve. But stop fucking cutting these songs to fit your needs. She comes out to Ruby Soho. That song, I get you want her to come out to the chorus.
That's a song?
It's a great song by Rancid. I get you want her to come out to the chorus, but the beginning of the song is perfect for a wrestler to enter to. Stop fucking picking when in the song you want it to be the entrance song like you did for the fucking Pixies. Don't cut up the music, Tony. Jerry Jarrett edited ELO. Bill Watts did not do anything to Queen. Be more like Watts here.
Well, in all honesty, have we told that story before?
About Jerry Jarrett?
It may have been a while.
Yeah.
But I admired this because this was Jerry Jarrett's attention to the detail of what went on his program. There is a line in the Rock and Roll Express's entrance music by ELO, Rock and Roll is King, come along with me to a land of make-believe. Jerry Jarrett didn't want that line on his wrestling program, so they fucking edited it out, smoothed it right over. That's attention to detail.
Now, I get why you didn't watch this and why you wouldn't have liked it, although you may have liked the final few minutes with Thunder Rosa and Ruby Soho, the former Ruby Riott.
I did not know that Ruby Soho was going to be here. I would have liked Ruby Soho and Thunder Rosa not after seeing 19 other girls do whatever the fuck it was they did. So when they have a singles match, I'll be there for it.
Oh, see, you missed it. Jade. Oh, Jade.
Oh, boy.
When she's not playing with her hair, she's doing everything she can to hold her top up. You gotta see fucking Jade in there.
She's not the president.
No, she's not the president. What are you trying to say?
I'm saying she's not the president of that committee.
No, God damn it. You went back to the committee?
That committee.
Of all the throwbacks you can have on this show.
I'm just saying she is not the person.
No.
That I was going to indict.
What I was going to say,
president of the committee.
Before you dragged us back down to your gutter, what I was going to say is, I understand why you didn't watch it, and you just basically admitted you probably would have liked her and Thunder Rosa, and probably will see them at some point. But although we didn't watch much of her in WWE, and I'm not very familiar with her work at all, it is one of those things that I've seen wrestling fans on social media really react to. It's not just Punk and Daniel Bryan and Adam Cole. The fact that she's there, right off their TV, and she was popular, fans like her, that's another one. It may not mean something to me and you, but to the average fan, it's another sign of look at who they got.
Well, and also they want to support these people because the fans, that the people that have left the WWE or been released or gotten out, escaped, whatever, because that makes them more babyface to these people because they're like, yeah, they got away from those guys because they hate Vince so bad, the fans. So, yeah, I mean, it's probably the best thing that a lot of guys could do, or girls, is right now is leave and go to AEW as far as making themselves more popular, because then the people are going to cheer you no matter what because you escaped from Devil's Island. Speaking of escaping from Devil's Island, do you think this is finally over now so poor MJF can feel safe again? Chris Jericho played the part of Jason Voorhees in the close of the first Friday the 13th movie. All the murder and the mayhem is over with, and the survivor is in the boat, and suddenly Jason comes out of the boat, boom, takes the survivor down, or comes out of the water, takes the survivor down. Jericho came out of the water and took MJF out of the boat. We thought he was safe, and ended up taking him to his watery grave. I know that Jericho felt left out with all the fancy musical entrances, but it was with that guitarist, it was hard for the fans to sing to that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think, quite frankly, with any guitarist, I mean, it doesn't really work well with singing along, just a single guitarist playing along to the song.
Maybe Jericho should have gotten Booger. to play him. It was rough. So I had to give that one a C. It was a little pitchy, dog, but they start the match, and finally there's a heel on the program. MJF wipes his ass with Jericho's jacket, tore Fann's sign in half. And they started out wrestling, tackles and arm drags and etc. But then they did a hockey fight spot. Keep track of these. Because Jericho was a little weak on the hockey fight spot. And then they do the smoke and mirrors because Jericho, he's not going to take a bunch of bumps that he don't have to. And he's not going to run a lot of running spots. So they went out to the floor and in the crowd so that Jericho can do shit, exciting shit without doing it, actually. But now, when they were in the crowd, the announcers clearly said the match has no count out. Right? You heard that. I made note of it.
I don't remember what the commentator said.
The announcer said, when they were out past the barricade into the crowd, the announcer said, this match has no count out. Remember that for a second. So finally, MJF takes over, and he was doing the best he could. He has to not run off and leave Jericho. So it was slow paced. It looked even slower because of all the chaos, which is another reason not to have the chaos matches, because then when you actually have a wrestling match, they seem slow, even though they register with people. But again, the pace that Jericho looked like he could go after all the chaos made it look even slower. And then I thought MJF was able to keep it alive with his heelishness, but they didn't need to go so long. Then MJF hits the Heat Seeker piledriver on Jericho on the apron, and he falls to the floor, and Jericho, they tease a count out. And fucking, was it Aubrey? I think it was Aubrey gets to fucking 9, and Jericho rolls back in. Remember that one, too. So earlier in the match, there was no count out. Now they just milked a count out spot to the count of 9, and then the guy rolls in quick.
And Aubrey counts slower than my 3-year-old.
Yes. Although in all fairness to your 3-year-old, Aubrey also has more fingers. But anyway.
What?
She's able to count on it. Anyway. So then MJF took a power bomb onto the apron. And Jericho was in quicksand, and MJF was doing a good job selling his back. But then he turns the Hurricane Rana of Jericho off the top rope into a power bomb and sells his back. He couldn't cover quickly enough. Suddenly, Wardlow and Hager come out and get in a fight on the floor. They don't even make it to the ring. And a bunch of people are now running after them. So these two guys not involved in the match, they get in a fight 50 feet from the ring, and there's instantly people running after them, but people are being beheaded with chainsaws in the ring, and nobody comes out. I'm just standards, keeping everything copacetic. So then MJF hits Jericho in the head with Jericho's baseball bat. And, of course, he does it with the way they always use the bat to hit, that you don't use a bat like that. But he goes, the boom, and then MJF hits Judas with the hit. MJF hits Jericho with the Judas. Covers him 1, 2, 3. But Jericho got his foot on the ropes at 2.5. And I was right here, I wrote, MJF has stolen it. Perfect. They didn't bury him. That wasn't bad. Good timing with the leg. But wait. A second referee comes to ringside. Old Paul Turner, bless him. He saw the foot on the rope at 2.5. He didn't see the ball bat, apparently. There was 30 seconds before that. He didn't see anything else that's happened all night. But he saw the foot on the ropes. Restart. God damn it. MJF got his arm bar, but Jericho squirmed out of it, got the lion tamer on his bad back, and MJF tapped out. And there's the final word. Can this be over now?
It has to be. It has to be. And it should be.
Do you think, has he wrung every little bit of heat out of MJF, or can he get just a little bit more to like the vampire sucking the blood, or like Christopher Reeve on South Park, sucking the blood of dead fetuses in order to gain superpowers to fight the evil Hackman.
Well, he's done everything he could for the last year to suck the blood out of MJF. Is there someone new that's arrived that Chris Jericho thinks has a tasty neck? I really don't know.
Ooh, there's some tasty necks still to come on this program.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, some of them may be smart enough to say, I'll be friendly with Chris Jericho, I'll be nice to Chris Jericho, but no, I'm not going to appear on your podcast, and no, I don't want to do a program with you. We'll see what happens.
Do you think maybe they'll start wearing garlic around their necks just to make sure?
Maybe we can start a thing where fans start doing that. But what I was going to say is, I think MJF did as good as anyone could do in this situation. Jericho can't go anymore. I don't want to hear what anyone says, oh, look what he could do. He could do this. He hit the lion salt for once. He can't go anymore. And he blows up quickly. And I hated the shit in the crowd. I'll give Jericho credit. When they got to the ring, he did better than I thought he would.
He took more bumps and did more things than he had to do. But it's just that the match, it gets so long, he has to rest so much in the middle. And the Vader arm whips from corner to corner where he doesn't take a step to even follow, and the shortcuts. And, people were asking like, well, CM Punk hasn't been in the ring in 7 years. How's his cardio going to be or whatever? He turned it up when he needed to, and he fucking kicked it in when he needed to, and then they sold when they needed to. And I know he's younger than Jericho, but he also hadn't wrestled in 7 years. But he didn't have a problem from what I saw.
MJF, like I said, as good as you could do. And I'm looking forward to what they do with him next. And I look at this like it's a mitzvah. It's over. It's the end or the beginning, however you want to see it. It's the beginning of the new year. Yom Kippur is coming up. God closes the book. He's done with Jericho. Let Jericho leech on to someone else. I hate the idea he's going to be on commentary ruining life for so many people every Friday night. But MJF is talented enough. In the ring, he showed that here. Look at his poise. Look at the little things he does. Look at his timing. Look at, like you said, when he went out of the ring and wiped his ass. Seems like a minor thing. Look at when he did it and why he did it.
Minute, the way you said it, when he went out of the ring and wiped his ass.
Yeah.
The timing he wiped his ass with was amazing.
He wiped his ass with Jericho's
jacket.
Jericho's jacket. Jericho wiped his ass with the whole business.
Yeah, he wiped his ass before he came to the ring in other ways.
The finish was all wrong. The feud should have ended with MJF going over, setting him up for something else, not with the 50-something-year-old babyface coming out with a victory. Especially, we'll see how much he's going to be on TV. Is he going to be on the road, or is he going to be still doing TV tapings for the next few months? Bad conclusion. MJF got as much out of Jericho as any wrestler could, and the kid is, what is he, 25 years old, 24, 25?
Something like that.
I still have faith in his future. We'll see who they program him with, but it has to be over with Jericho, and they should get Jericho off the fucking show for a while. They won't. Tony's a big Jericho fan, and they love showing people sing. I don't mind the singing. It's Jericho. Why do I have to watch Jericho looking at everyone smiling?
But they've got.
I orchestrated this. Look at you suckers. Look at what you're doing because I set this up.
They got a new sing-along. Like Mussolini and Kennedy.
That's the only lyric of that song you know. Every time you sing that song,
I like Mussolini.
The first thing you go to is Mussolini.
Like Mussolini. That's the best part of it there. Boy, I tell you what, well, we have our memories of MJF, even though, maybe it'll get good from here. Maybe he'll rise to the occasion. Maybe his goose has already been cooked, but we've always got our memories. We can take a nice snapshot of MJF 2 years ago when he was the best, freshest, most believable heel in the business, and we can send it to our friends at Paint Your Life, and that way we'll always remember the heel MJF, courtesy of a fine quality oil painting made from a world-class artist that's hanging on our wall.
I'm telling you, the Bobby Ewing painting, MJF in the shower at the end of the season, it's all a dream. We start anew. With MJF in a new program like Jericho never happened.
Oh, I wasn't sure where you were going because I thought the painting was Bobby Ewing on a bearskin rug naked when he was coming out of the shower.
No. That's Vince and the Warrior. You're getting things confused here.
Oh, I see. And nevertheless, folks, we've talked about our friends at Paint Your Life. They are back to continue painting your life. And what they do is very simple. They're going to continue doing it. They take any picture, any photograph that you've got, or a combination of photographs, and they get a professional hand-painted portrait made of it with their world-class artists. They work with you until the details are perfect. You've got a user-friendly platform. I've heard other people have those. That makes it easy to order custom-made hand-painted portraits in less than 5 minutes. You can receive your portrait in as little as 2 weeks, and it can be a picture of yourself, your children, your family, a special place, a cherished loved one that's gone, a pet, whatever, or a combination of picture. You can have all the family generations together, even if they weren't all in the same place at the same time. It's a perfect birthday, anniversary, or wedding gift. It can be cherished forever, and we love things that we can cherish. Anyway, right now at paintyourlife.com, there's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. And as a limited time offer, you can get 20% off of your painting from Paint Your Life, 20% off and free shipping if you text the word DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's 64 and 3 zeros. DRIVE to 64,000. 64,000, I say. Text it to DRIVE or text DRIVE.
No, text DRIVE to
or
64.
do all these things. Just cover all your bases. Folks, paint your life. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Terms apply. Available at paintyourlife.com/terms. Again, text DRIVE to 64,000. Do not text 64,000 to DRIVE, because that probably wouldn't even work. If I knew how to text shit, then I'd be able to tell you for sure. But since I don't and never have, I'm not sure. Can you text a number to a word, or do you have to text a word to a number?
You could... I've never been asked this question before. You could text a word to a number, and I guess technically you could text a number to a word if you're typing out the word, but it's the numbers on the keypad.
Oh.
Why are we going into the technicalities of this? Ladies and gentlemen, a fine product, and of course, the holidays coming up, you need good gifts. Paint your life today.
And speaking of painting, our favorite man with a painted face was up next in another one of his videos. Darby Allen, in black and white as usual, zipped a guy up in a body bag, except his arm was hanging out, so we know it was a person. And then you see that the body bag is being hung from a helicopter that's flying in the air, and Darby's in the helicopter. And then Darby jumps out of the helicopter, and the screen goes black. So you don't see where he landed or what happened to the guy in the body bag on the rope. And what the fuck did that have to do with this match?
Darby does little artistic videos.
What? Anyway, guess what happened next? Like Mussolini and Kennedy and Joseph Stalin.
Who does that rhyme with? Who does that rhyme with?
And Lucky Pierre.
Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins and Joseph Stalin.
They should make him Seth Stalin. He'd be so much more interesting. He's got the beard already. Seth Stalin.
Like Nikita Khrushchev. Anyway, Darby Allin and CM Punk and Sting wished Darby Allin well and stayed in the back. And then we got the entrance, and as Mrs. Grimm's baby boy would say, it's clobbering time. And this time Punk comes out, and he's got a game face on, and he's serious. He's not smiling and happy and soaking in the love because he's got a fight coming up instead of a promo. It looked right. And by the way, did you hear what CM Punk, the weight that he was announced at?
Actually, I missed that. What was he announced at?
218 pounds.
Oh, good. As it should be.
As it should be. He's a grown man. You can't get away with too much. But 218, if he's 198, he looks 218. He's looking good. He got a little bit of a tan there. He's fucking been obviously training. So, and he's a tall guy. So, yes, you can get away with 218. And I don't, I would think that Lee Johnson, going back to that earlier, if I was standing next to Lee Johnson, he'd look physically a little bit bigger than me. I weigh 201 pounds. And this is the lightest I've ever been, and I'm a small person for the wrestling business. So I don't understand what their fucking problem is with trying to make more of their guys look like grown adults. Anyway, watching them look at each other, Darby Allen and Punk, at the start of this thing was better than a lot of the matches. Punk even got a pop for sitting down and looking at Darby because Darby was doing the spooky "I'm looking at you in the corner" thing. And they got a holy shit chant for sitting down and looking at each other because they're over. And they worked this match like veteran versus upstart. They did wrestling moves. Punk's facials and reactions. At first, he was kind of taking him a little bit for granted, and then it was a little more serious. They had a pace. The ebb and flow. It was like watching Jerry Lawler call or ring general a match where everything follows. There's nothing out of place. Everything makes sense. And you don't run off and leave people, so everything registers. And this is the best I said before earlier in the show. It's the best match I've ever seen Darby Allen have. It's the best he's ever looked because he's explosive. He may be small, but he hits hard. We've talked about it. When he does the dives, he's the only one that looks like he's trying to hurt somebody instead of doing a belly flop in a swimming pool with a bunch of people to catch him. And unusual things come out of nowhere with him. Punk shoots him corner to corner, and he took a bump through the buckles sideways and to the post and to the floor. And then guess what happened? Punk went out there and grabbed him and threw him in the ring and covered him and tried to beat him. Imagine that. Who could have ever thought of doing something like that in a wrestling match? Now he works the injured back. He gets the bow and arrow. He gets the abdominal stretch. This match made sense. Punk kept control of the pace. You could see him every once in a while reminding or shepherding Darby with something. But it wasn't like, as I mentioned before, this pace was up and down. It wasn't like Jericho where he eliminates any extra movement. Punk was still explosive when he should be. All his shit looked good. He was always in the right place. And he allowed Darby Allen to get his shit in where it made sense and where it would make a difference. And then a series of false finishes by Darby Allen. He turned the belly to back off the top into a cross body. And that was a heck of a bump. I'm sure Punk was like, well, I remember that from 7 years ago. That was a heck of a bump. But anyway, and then that deep in the match, they got the double bridge. And I know that it's not Flair and Steamboat and Darby Allen's 150 pounds, but still that deep in the match, that was Flair's game. He would always, with Wyndham or with Steamboat or with Magnum or one of the athletic guys like that, he wanted to see how deep in the match they could go and still nail the double bridge. And if it was like 30 minutes in, he's like, yeah. Anyway, here's the part where Punk hits the go to sleep, boom, and Darby goes through the ropes and to the floor. That was great because the guys hit his finish, but the opponent is out on the floor and
great bump.
But then here was the same thing they did in the previous match. They've seen this on a Japanese tape, as I remember it from 30 years ago. And so now that's all that they do. They lay there like they're dead, milking the count until 9, and then suddenly come to life, roll back in the ring, and then lay there dead again. Isn't it more dramatic and less see-through if you take a bump like that and you're trying for the count to inch and crawl and scratch and drag your way back into that ring, and it doesn't look like you're going to make it, and then you last minute heave instead of just, I'm dead. Oh, I'm in. Now I'm dead again. So I'm not a fan of that. And they did it the same spot, 2 matches on the same show. Punk was hitting nice forearms that actually looked like they might be connecting. He calls for his go to sleep with his little sleepy bye thing. He goes for it. Darby Allen hits the elbows. Punk peels out to the floor. Darby hits the dive hard and then did a flip off the top of a rope, and both of them sold that. They're selling these things in between. They're not just jumping up. And then finally, Darby gets Punk back in the ring, goes for the coffin drop. Well, how in the world can you foil a coffin drop? I don't know. Sit up. And that's what he did. Punk
that was
up.
Brilliant. That was so perfect. That was great.
And then he's got a look on his face like, yeah, I did that. And then, you know, Darby tries the flippy-do stunner, but Punk caught him, had him up over his shoulder. The second go to sleep, and this one's in the ring, and 1, 2, 3. Great job. Darby Allen has the best match he's ever had. CM Punk wins his debut. It's the first AEW match that ever, I think, that didn't bury the referee. And as we mentioned, I think, last week on the program, the idea here in a perfect world would be for CM Punk to have the best match with Darby Allen Darby Allen's ever had and make him look like a star in the process and then win it. And that's what he did. So, again, it's a schizophrenic program, and this was quality shit, and somehow they're going to have to bring dragging, kicking, and screaming, in some cases, the rest of the roster up to this level of conduct. If they don't, they're going to continue to have great segments in the middle of fucking amateur hour.
I thought it was great. It started off slow, and it worked because the crowd there they were in the Punk. They wanted to see it. And then the split chants, that was nice to see because they are both baby faces. It was very reminiscent, and I saw a few other people have the same thought, very reminiscent of Bret Hart versus the 1, 2, 3 Kid on Raw. I wonder if they watched it before they put this together or thought about what they were going to do. I'm glad there was no big aftermath. It ended exactly how it should. Can't complain. I can't say anything bad about this. This was great. A few points I'm watching is I'm the same age as Punk, and I've taken the same amount of bumps as Punk in the last 7 years. And there were a few points where I'm watching his face and his selling, and I'm like, oh, man. He's feeling it. He's saying, what the fuck did I do? But it was great. And you know what? Excitement is so hard to come by sometimes in wrestling, and that's why AEW is connected with so many people. We're just looking for excitement. I'm excited to see what they're going to do next with Punk. So far, he's got a very high batting average. Everything he has done has made sense. You may not agree with 2.0 or Daniel Garcia, whoever being involved, but everything he has done, and I don't agree with him getting physical before the pay-per-view, but everything he has done has a very high batting average so far.
But remember, I said I understand they wanted heels for fodder if the guys
you did. Yes,
carried the thing off a little bit better. But and Sting came out and shook hands with Punk, so everybody's happy there.
You needed that at the end. You needed the handshake with him and Darby, and of course him and Sting.
Oh, and then in perfect match placement for once, the people needed to settle down. They need time to catch their breath, and what better time to send out QT Marshall and Solo Camarato, but not a go-go.
Yeah, I suddenly understand why this was booked on the show. Actually, you needed a buffer between the matches that people were really into.
Well, they actually could have played a Mighty Mouse cartoon at this point. And I'm incredible that this was Paul White, the Big Show's first pay-per-view match in this company. And they just threw it away. And nobody was going to care about this. There was no jeopardy of any kind. They didn't need to get the heat on Big Show that they did just to justify this match being on a pay-per-view. As you mentioned, they could have made Show a special partner of somebody and just let him do a couple of his things, choke slam, whatever. But instead, he had to suffer this, and it was 2 or 3 minutes long. He dumps the Stooges over the top rope. He beat up QT. QT sold. QT took over. Show made a comeback. Stooges took some bumps, and Show hit the choke slam 1, 2, 3. So it wasn't like that they went crazy and did shit they shouldn't have done except for having this match to begin with. It's like bringing Andre the Giant back after a long absence and putting him in the ring with, the fucking Conquistador. Why?
It's like doing that when it's late era Andre the Giant, who doesn't have that much left. I watched this and I said, I don't think Paul White has too many more matches in the ring left physically.
Well, he's got an artificial hip.
Exactly. Why waste it on this? Even if you had done, and I'm not advocating for this, but even if you had done him and Billy Gunn, who was nowhere to be found after that angle they did the other day. Even if you did that, I think it would have been better than him and QT. Just no one. It was literally throwing the Big Show on a pay-per-view to get him on the pay-per-view, but then in the end, it really didn't do anything. There was no point to it. Unless this was all just a favor to get QT involved in an angle. I don't know.
And you're right. Billy Gunn seemed like he would have been around somewhere since he engaged in that treachery last week.
Yeah, his poor kids, man. They had fucking...
Those scumbags?
They had ringside tickets. They had subscription seats. And now they can't get a seat anywhere. They were sitting ringside dancing and singing and hamming it up for a year, and now nowhere to be seen.
I just loved it, though, when the Gun Club is in the ring backing Big Show up, and they're the greatest thing since the Cavalry, and everybody's talking nice about him because they came out to help, and suddenly Billy Gunn himself hits Show with a chair, and excrement immediately turns on Gunn's kids who's standing there and hadn't done anything. Well, and his scumbag sons, too. What the fuck did they do? Maybe they were as surprised by their old man's actions as we were. Malachi Black did a great promo for Wednesday. I hope the match makes sense. I hope he doesn't hand Dustin Rhodes a chair to hit him over the head with.
It was kind of cool hearing the crowd reaction to it also.
I mean, he's got something there if they don't gimmick up his matches too much. He's a very compelling personality.
I'm telling you, him and Punk down the road. On the mic, in the ring. Physically, there were some similarities with the tattoos and, of course, the kicks and stuff. Down the road, that's a good one. Punk and Malachi Black.
But right now, that's down the road, and right up in front of us at the nearest stop sign, we have the main event for the AEW Championship, Christian Cage against Kenny Olivier with his manager, Don Fallis, who looks like a bottle of Pepto-Bismol. Well, with the pink suit and the white head, right? He looks like a bottle of Pepto-Bismol.
The white head. I thought about the pink suit. I didn't think about the white head.
Yeah, he did the pink suit and the white head.
All right.
I wonder if you screwed Don Fallis's head off his shoulders, if you could pour a measured amount of medicine into his neck and take it as a shot out of his fucking bald head. Anyway. He used to have such wonderful hair. Speaking of hair, now Twinkle Toes' hair is dyed jet black. I mean, fucking, inverse gravity jet black with a bluish blonde splotch on top of his head. It looks like a pelican took a shit on top of his head. Every week it's something different. Anyway. They started this match, and you know how much I like Christian Cage. And I think he's an excellent worker and a complete pro and a great guy. There's only so much you can do with this guy while you're trying to let him do his shit too. That's where it all falls apart. But they started the match with the hockey fight. It was the best one of the 3 or 4 that I've seen in matches on this show, but it was, again, with the hockey fight. And immediately they went to the floor and started bouncing off the barricades. And within the first 90 seconds, Cage had done a leap and a double sledge off the top of the turnbuckle to the floor. So they started out doing the same shit that everybody else was doing. And then in the first 3 minutes of the match, Cage is laying on the floor selling outside the ring. Twinkle Toes pulls a table from under the ring, puts it on top of Christian, gets back up on the apron and backs up. Christian is laying there under the table waiting for this, and Twinkle Toes jumps off the apron with a double stomp and breaks the table on top of Christian Cage in the first 3 minutes. Then the referee watches Don Fallis and Twinkle Toes set up another table on the floor. He watches it. He doesn't do anything about it, but he just watches it. Then they do the deal where they try to milk giving somebody a bump through the fucking table, which always backfires, and it did in this case because Twinkle Toes tries to suplex Cage through the table, but Cage turns him around and suplexes him on the floor instead. And then they get in the ring and start wrestling. And at one point, then they're back out on the floor. And Cage is laying there on the floor again. This is a common theme. And old Harpo goes to do a springboard moonsault off the barricade onto Cage on the floor, and his feet slipped off the barricade, and his ass landed tailbone first on that metal bicycle rack.
Yeah, that looked bad.
And I'm sure that was comfortable. And then, of course, instead of thinking quickly, such as, well, I'll just fucking forget about this fancy shit and get back on my opponent, or instead of Cage getting up and tackling him because he made a mistake, Cage just laid there and let him look at the people and go, oh, no, and then jump up and do it again and land it because there's no reason to move for Cage because... and then he wandered around. And I feel bad for Christian Cage. His shit looks good. He works hard. As I said, he's solid. Every time that you let Twinkle Toes do his awkward shit, it either doesn't make sense or it drags the match down. And they were going a while, too, because we were 3.5 hours into this show already, and they've still got a lot to do. And then Twinkle Toes started doing the Petunia suplexes. And he did several Petunia the Snapdragons. Snapdragons, Petunias, Daisies, Magnolias, things like that.
They explained on commentary why it was such a devastating suplex.
Mm-hmm. Excrement explains a lot on commentary, too.
That's his role.
Yeah. Anyway, so then Twinkle Toes tried to German suplex Christian Cage off the ring apron through the table set up on the floor. Let me ask you this, Brian. You're watching this. Cage is standing on the apron holding onto the top rope, right? His back is toward the table. Twinkle Toes is waist-locked him, standing on the apron as well, and is trying to pull him off the ropes where he's holding on to so he can German suplex him backwards off the ring through the table. Have I described that correctly?
I think so.
If old Twinkle Toes was to hit that move, German suplexing somebody backwards off the apron through a table, what would happen to him?
He would have some issues.
He would have a 200-pound man on top of him going through that fucking table, wouldn't he? God damn. And so but they didn't do that, obviously, because they go through the deal where they do a preposterous milking of a series of moves off the apron, trying to tease to the crowd that somebody's going to go through the table, because that's the most important thing in the history of wrestling, is to make sure you break as many tables as possible. And finally, after 2 or 3 of these reversals and switches and etc., Cage spears Twinkle Toes off the apron through the table. So now that's the second time we've broken a table in the same match. Nobody's going to sell it, or it's not going to play any part in the finish. I wrote, please go home. Twinkle Toes hit a bunch of his knee lifts, but then suddenly Cage got a cloverleaf, and then Phallus calls down Gallows and Anderson. And this was a great spot. Don Phallus jumps up on the apron of the ring and engages in a lengthy conversation with the referee, while less than 10 feet behind the referee's back, a giant 300-something-pound man and his fucking sidekick are interfering in the fucking match that's going on, and Cage is fighting them off behind the referee's back. And then finally, Cage hits his finish on Twinkle Toes, the kill switch, and Twinkle Toes kicks out of it. So Cage sets Twinkle Toes up on the top. And then that's when Don Callis gets in the ring in front of the referee and just waves his arms, and Christian jumps down and chases him out. There's no contact, but should I break it to the people now that no, there doesn't have to be contact when the manager comes into the ring for it to be a disqualification? That's a modern contrivance of the actual rules because, well, you know what it is. Lazy booking. If the referee sees you in the ring, it's supposed to be a disqualification. But nevertheless, that's the least of their problems. Because Cage jumped down, chased him out of the ring, and then goes back and goes to the top, and he's going to give his finish to Twinkle Toes off the top, but Twinkle Toes gouges his eyes, and they stand up there forever and a day while Twinkle Toes gets Cage up on his shoulders to do the one-winged fairy off the top rope while Cage sits there and lets him do it. And it's a incredibly hard and dangerous, I'm sure, bump that required obvious cooperation to get to that point. And that's a 1, 2, 3. My God. Before we go into the afterbirth, do you have any comments on the match?
I liked it better than you did. I thought it was pretty good. Omega still, it's been a while, but at different points, the wacky faces, it always takes me out of it, but I thought it was a good match. I thought Christian did great. I have a question for you that came to me watching this. Who do you think's been better in the ring on this comeback, Christian or Edge?
Ooh. Well, it may not be fair because Christian didn't have the neck issues that Edge did.
He did have neck issues, though.
Did he have neck issues?
He had the surgery too, didn't he?
He had the same thing. Well, in that case, then if they're on an even playing field, I think Christian's probably looked quicker, better, more mobile. But of course, Edge has actually drawn more money and attention because he's with the big company that does these things right. Whereas Cage came out and made a big impact, and 3 weeks later was doing pre-taped interviews for Jungle Boy. So each one of them, I would say, has done better in some aspect of this.
Maybe it wasn't a neck. I know he had concussion issues, but I thought it was a neck too. I'm trying to look to see if I can find something, but at a minimum, it was concussion issues.
Well, I know you liked it better than I do because you're more forgiving of Twinkle Toes, although not completely, but I just can't unsee all that. And also, it just... The promotion that was supposed to be not sports entertainment and not WWE does even more ridiculously egregious, unbelievable sports entertainment finishes and spots in most of their matches. And that's, Anyway.
I think, look, the room, it was the right match for that room. I like Omega clearly better than you did. I'm not saying it was his greatest match or anything. I just thought, I thought it was a good match.
If they would have left several things for these people to do that hadn't been done before in the night, that would have been a positive too.
I will say this, and I brought up the other day when they did the angle on Dynamite with the Cage and the beatdown that went forever. I said it reminded me of Ole and of Ole booking in 1990 and late era NWO. I was really enjoying this match. Even Callis didn't bother me. But man, as soon as you see Gallows and Anderson, it just takes you right down. Not only the fact that it's them and they are just not very good, but just the run-in. It just feels like everything that made you groan in the past. Everyone talks about how much they love the Horsemen. Fans were groaning in 1988, ladies and gentlemen, because the run-ins became a regular thing, and we saw it during WCW's, run in the late 90s. That's the only thing. I like the Omega matches better than you, but as soon as you start having those run-ins, and we've been seeing them more and more frequently with this group, with the Elite, that really hurts things. I hate it.
One of the first things Dennis Condrey taught me in Mid-South Wrestling was, and this was just a conversation in the car. This is where you learned all this shit. He said, you can tell in a territory when they've been doing too many run-ins, because as soon as the heels start getting heat, the people aren't looking at the ring, they're looking at the back. They're looking at the entrance. Who's coming? They know somebody's coming, they just don't know who or when. That's when you've been doing too many run-ins. And in the territory days, they would actually take notice of that and adjust based on seeing that in the buildings, if they were smart. But anyway, it's constant. And that's what happened. And speaking of which, afterbirth, after the 1, 2, 3, here comes again the Hardley Boys. And here comes again Gallows and Anderson. And they start getting the heat on Christian Cage. And then I get they want to send out Jungle Boy and Dino Douche. But why do they have the dwarf with them? What use of any kind is he going to be in this situation? And it just makes it look hokey and stupid. So you've got two baby faces, Jungle Boy and the Dinosaur, that you're trying to push, and you want to at least be some fodder here again for what we're about to see. Tell the fucking dwarf to stay in the back. This is main event time. This is not time for visual comedy. And that's what he is. When you look at him, you want to laugh. So that brought this down. And there was a spot where old Dino Douche didn't sell Twinkle Toes his belt shot because he didn't feel it and didn't know he hit him with it. So they beat them down. Twinkle Toes gets the microphone and turns into another phony circle jerk party. Again, this time, I don't know whether it was because he was blowed up or he affects these mannerisms, but he was speaking like a space alien who just heard humans for the first time.
He doesn't speak in a natural way on the mic.
So anyway, he's about to tell everybody good night and fuck off. And wait, there's music. Here comes Adam Cole. And okay, well, we've solved this mystery. We figured he was coming anyway. Now he's here. But wait a minute. Why is he coming alone for 6 people? He gets in the ring. The heels are shitting. Adam Cole is over. And then he super kicks Jungle Boy and hugs the Elite. And he gets kissed on the cheek by the Cucamonga Kids. So now they've ruined Adam Cole for me. He's joined the Elite. That means if I have to watch Adam Cole, I have to make the decision of whether I'm going to suffer the presence of the rest of these assholes. And I don't know whether even my love of Adam Cole can get me to do that.
I'm sure he'll do some great stuff there.
But he's already one of the boys.
He was before. I mean, again, this is just him going back to what he was doing before WWE. These were his boys beforehand.
No.
He was doing skits with them. They were kissing him. All this stuff was happening.
They've not only gave a surprise entrance, but they didn't leave any secrecy about where he was going, and they've made him, I'm talking, one of the boys. Not one of the Elite. He's one of the boys. CM Punk isn't one of the boys yet. There's the rest of this roster, and there's CM Punk. And another guy we're about to talk about here in a second. Nothing bad's happened to him yet. He may still be above the fray. He's not one of the boys yet. They've made Adam Cole one of the boys. He's joined a group already, so now he's one of the boys. He's not a major outsider acquisition. He's fit right in, and he's one of the boys. And that diminishes his aura right from the start, to me.
How would you have brought him in?
Well, if he has to be with his friends, that doesn't mean you have to tell everybody how it's going to happen that night. I'm not going to rebook this whole goddamn thing, because for one thing, all these fucking surprise entrances on top of one another, I might have spread this out a bit, but you could have easily had Adam Cole come out and have anything non-physical with people, stare downs, whatever, you don't know what's going on, and then do the angle on free television where over 1 million people will see it instead of 100 or 200,000. But nevertheless, he gets kissed by the Cucamonga Kids and more music. It's the flight of the Bumblebee or the ride of the Valkyries. And here comes Bryan Danielson, and now the people go batshit. I don't know if I do all these at the same time, because there's going to come a time where they're going to run out of entrances of people that people go batshit for because they didn't expect or they didn't know when they were showing up or whatever. But here, this batshit tops the last batshit, and Bryan Danielson goes in and picks up the baby faces, and they all look at the heels, and they all get in a fight. And Danielson shit got all the reaction, and everybody else was just taking up space. So I'm glad that both those guys are there. As I said, I'm concerned about the company that Adam Cole's going to be keeping. And boy, this definitely was a surprise-filled pay-per-view, but are they starting to put these just one on top of another quickly just for the sake of having these great entrances? Are they going to run out of them when they run out of people to do them?
Well, they'll certainly run out of them. There are a few more they could have in the future, in the immediate future, and we'll see as contracts come up, but everyone's pointing to Bray Wyatt. The Adam Cole thing, I guess if you were going to debut him here, you had to debut Daniel Bryan here, or Bryan Danielson here, because as soon as Adam Cole came out and people like him, they were chanting yes earlier in that night. They thought Bryan Danielson was going to be there. Any other surprise at the end of the night was going to be a letdown. So as soon as Adam Cole came out, you had to have Bryan Danielson there too. So you might as well. So if you weren't going to do this, you had to hold Adam Cole back until New York or whatever.
I don't know how you can say it's a letdown when you get Ruby Soho, for people who like that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing those people like as a surprise. You get CM Punk's return, and you get Adam Cole showed up, and they've still got a stadium show in New York.
Because
I thought for sure
leaked.
that would be.
The problem is the word leaked. As soon as word got out that AEW was thinking about debuting him in Chicago, they had to debut him there. They would have had people leaving upset, despite all the, I agree with you, CM Punk and all these surprises.
So you're saying they've worked themselves into the same corner that Paul Heyman worked himself into in ECW when people started expecting surprises, and then he had to go out and find surprises.
Yes, although so far it's worked a lot better for Tony Khan than it has for Paul Heyman. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that was the thing there. I mean, it was one of the better AEW shows overall, just for all the shock, the great crowd, the surprises, Punk's match. But Punk's match was so different because it was the only wrestling match they had.
And well, to an extent, although I expressed my problems with various things, I think Jericho and MJF actually would classify.
Well, all right. I shouldn't say that. Jericho and MJF was a wrestling match. It was just one guy was in quicksand.
Yeah.
But, okay, a high-level wrestling match, that's different now on their shows because everybody else does the same shit. So if they could actually get some guys, and they've got a few here now, that can work and have these matches, then if they allow them to have wrestling matches instead of the stunt shows, then that'll up the quality of the program. But then here's the thing. I don't know who'll see through who. Will any fans that Adam Cole and CM Punk and Bryan Danielson brings to this show, will they enjoy the matches that these guys are having, and will they see through the performances of the rest of the indie talent on the card? Or because the indie fans that like that indie talent were there first and make up the majority of this fan base, will they not get into the actual professional matches that the new talent has and think that they're slow and dull? So which side's going to see through who first?
Without it happening yet, knowing some of the people there, you are going to hear people complaining about the slower style of the guys that come out of WWE, whether it's fair or not. You will hear that. But we've talked about it with the CM Punk segment. That was a great segment. What's before it and after it is part of the problem. This may have been their best pay-per-view. And it had such excitement, and people now are really looking forward to seeing what's next. People are looking forward to see what's next with Punk, with Bryan Danielson. I mean, there's so many question marks coming out of it. The momentum we talked about AEW having a few weeks ago, it feels like it's only gone up.
Oh, it's yes. And I mean, it's almost like Vince is unaware.
Is he alive? Is Vince alive? Has anyone seen a breathing Vince McMahon?
Vince McMahon, unbeknownst to himself, is taking a dive in this thing. He doesn't even realize it, that he's handing it over to him. This is not like 20 whatever years ago with WCW, which was, they got a few jumps at the start on people just because Vince hadn't had his contract situation ducks in a row because he had never needed to. So nobody wanted to go the other way. But that was a dogfight. This is just, he's being pummeled by self-inflicted wounds and letting people go and allowing them to show up there and doing a boring, crummy, nonsensical, juvenile program. And the one that was a little bit different than that, NXT, he's fixing to take that over and make that boring, juvenile, and simple as well.
And the guy who was one of the top stars, if not the top star there, is now on the other show on Wednesday nights.
There you go.
So
a couple.
But if you were watching that show from the beginning on Wednesday nights and Adam Cole was one of the main people, and all of a sudden the show's not on Wednesday nights, but Adam Cole still is. But I want to ask you some more follow-up questions about the pay-per-view and AEW and WWE and what's happening. But you mentioned Omega's hair earlier, and I had to bring this up.
Yeah.
Because it was jet black the other day. This time it was jet black with blue streaks. There was some of the Giuliani dye drip I noticed as he was walking to the ring. He's lucky he's able to dye his hair. But I think maybe because of all those chemicals and everything he's putting in his hair, pretty soon Kenny may have to worry about keeping his hair.
Well, that's the thing. I'll tell you what, because, you do a lot of damage to your hair when you're constantly changing the color like that, especially when you're using, that paint from Earl Scheib that he's using. But you don't have to damage your hair, folks. You can keep your hair. Because if you go to the folks at Keeps, then they will show you and tell you and aid you in keeping your hair. Everybody, all men at one time or another stress about hair loss, and there's a large percentage of us will have the male pattern baldness and et cetera, et cetera. However, if you start with the folks at Keeps, you can not only keep the hair you've got on your head, but you can even stimulate some that has taken a bow and left the building to come on back in for a second round. Keeps offers a simple, stress-free way to keep your hair so you won't be pulling it out. They've got convenient virtual doctor consultations, medications delivered straight to your door every 3 months so you don't have to leave your home, and treatments start at just $10 a month because they offer generic versions of all of the well-known hair prevention products. They've got discreet packaging and proven results. That's easy for me to say, but they do, and it works. They've got more 5-star reviews than any of their competitors, but folks, prevention is the key. Treatments can take 4 to 6 months to see results, so act fast. And right now, if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to Keeps, Keeps, Keeps.com/JCE to get your first month of treatment for free. That's Keeps.com/JCE. First month free for our folks, because we want to see you guys happy and hairy instead of bitchy and bald.
Well, no one wants to be too bitchy here right now, Jim, but I'll ask you a few follow-up questions on behalf of the listeners. I'll tie in the word let's there about All Out. First one. It has already been said by Tony Khan on Twitter, it was the most bought pay-per-view event, as we all assumed it would be.
Yeah.
If it breaks 200, if it breaks 250,000 buys, what do you think the reaction from Vince McMahon and WWE is?
I give up trying to figure out what they're thinking. As I just said a few minutes ago, they're letting these people run away with this thing anyway. Is somebody going to say, well, they're doing it with all of our guys? Well, then I'd track down who let all those guys go, if that was the case, if that's the comment. And again, they've got a dedicated fan base already. Obviously, we know that. These people, the Elmer's glue set that will thank you for the ice cream. But if they they've already, the TV ratings over the past few weeks since Punk has shown, well, he picked up a couple 100,000 from what they were doing on a regular basis. Now they got Cole. Now they got fucking everybody. I can't imagine what the WWE is thinking, or if they're thinking, as the boys used to say. Because, again, this AEW as a company was fairly flat, give or take, for what, a year and a half. And then suddenly...
But again, pandemic.
The people in their homes are still watching television. The point I'm making is that all of a sudden, this momentum that we're talking about started when the WWE started firing everybody's favorite wrestlers and letting them fucking go, and they started showing up here. And now all of a sudden, everybody's going, what the? And Punk. And now all of a sudden the worm, as they say, has turned. But pandemic or no pandemic, the show looked the same every week. The numbers were mostly the same every week, except when they hot-shotted some, piranha cage of death underwater match or whatever, and then they'd pick up a few, and then they'd go right back to where they were. But now they're picking them up, and they ain't going down because they have a steady stream of new mainstream stars that are coming into a different environment. Everybody always loves that. And they're huge baby faces, all of them, because the people love that they escape from the evil empire. And even if this slows down and after Bray Wyatt and whoever else, they can't find anybody else right off the bat, they've still picked up a few 100,000 people on a regular basis. And as long as they don't do shows that are really crummy, they hopefully won't run those off. So to answer your question, I do not have any idea what the WWE is thinking, but a lot of this has been served up on a silver platter by Vince and his minions who want to do what Vince wants to do.
Having seen NXT at various points over the last several years and knowing that Adam Cole for the last 4 years or so has been a top guy there, and with all these changes happening and the talent that's being signed by the different companies, again, this is all hypothesis here, but what do you think Triple H is thinking? Seeing Adam Cole come out there and get that big pop on that show. Look at where Triple H was, not just in terms of position, but stature amongst the smart fans 3 years ago, and look at where he is today.
Yeah, 3 years ago, it was a picture of every independent darling shaking hands in front of the logo with Triple H.
Property of WWE.
Yeah, and now it's basically video of Triple H helping them carry their bags to the car. I can't imagine what he thinks. He's like, we had this guy. We had this guy on our TV program, and now fucking everybody's screaming, Adam Cole, baby, on the other channel. Of course he's out of his mind. I would have to think he's out of his mind.
In the 90s, AEW is great for AEW fans, but let's be honest, Vince had a much bigger threat at that time from WCW than AEW is at this moment. We'll see what happens in the future. But Vince reacted to that by changing his entire product, by doing things he would never do before, by going outside of his comfort zone. And it was a lot of crap, but the shit that worked really worked.
Yeah.
And it propelled the business.
Yeah.
Can you see him doing that today?
No. You know why? He's got no bullets. Give me back my bullets. He had, when he lost Nash and Hall and Hogan and Savage, the backbone of that started the initial invasion, and WCW's beefing themselves up, he fell back on those young guys, Foley and Triple H and fucking Austin and Rock. And think of the roster that both companies had then. Not only stars, but guys that were fucking ready to be stars in the future and did become stars. And also tons of guys still from the territories, tons of guys still with experience, tons of guys that hadn't just been trained at a wrestling school. I don't care whether he wants to get out of his comfort zone or not now. There's one key ingredient missing that was there 20-something years ago, and that was a large pool of talent that could replace guys that left and get over even stronger because they were already ready to be stars. And now, if they don't steal the stars from the WWE, then AEW is getting them from the Indies and the Nightmare Factory. And where's WWE getting its stars from? NXT. And they just fired half of them. And the ones that there is no Steve Austin or Rock ready to bubble up on the horizon in NXT or anywhere else.
And whether we like the AEW talent or not, which company does a better job of putting someone on TV and at least treating them like a star and not just beating them right away or something?
I don't know. That's a loaded question.
It's AEW.
I haven't seen a lot of great introductions. I've seen great entrances, but as far as the booking of new talent.
But look, if Karrion Kross or Keith Lee had gone from NXT to AEW instead of NXT to WWE main roster,
yeah,
you concede it would have been done a whole lot better.
Yeah, they'd
and
have
less insulting.
They'd have gone 15 minutes through a break with Lee Johnson. See what I'm saying?
Maybe so. I'll take that over a tennis skirt. That's what I'm saying. Or a demolition knockoff mask.
But that's the point. Vince can get in any frame of mind he wants to get it in at this point. But there is not a large supply of talent that you can use to replace people or elevate them or whatever, like there was 20-something years ago in the wrestling business now. There's a bunch of indie guys that have trained in the indies and can have indie matches, and there's a bunch of guys that trained in wrestling schools, but there is no more experienced talent out there that wants to be a part of these two companies that is already not. Or elsewise, where would they fucking be hiding?
And Vince better come up with a better answer about AEW for the next shareholders conference call, because you're going to be getting that question more and more and more. They're getting all the publicity. They're getting all the articles. I saw something someone sent me from ESPN.com, a picture of Punk, a picture of Danielson, and it said, Bryan Danielson to CM Punk return to the ring. And I'm thinking, well, CM Punk returns to the ring after 7 years. Danielson was just wrestling on their main roster months ago, and you can almost forget about that.
Hey, as all I'm saying is that there's not a lot of real money-drawing mainstream talent out there that's been trained and is experienced and ready to go. So the more Vince gives up because he doesn't particularly like whatever the fuck Triple H is doing or whatever, or the more that Nick Khan just think, well, we're paying him too much, and they show right up on the other side because that guy's not worried about his fucking budget, then the worm turns quickly.
And we've seen his bullets. It's Goldberg, it's Lesnar, and it was Cena. Cena's already gone. Goldberg, the law of diminishing returns. Lesnar, time will tell. Tony just took a bunch of guys.
Punk looks like a goddamn minor. he's only 40. My God, he could barely even buy beer legally compared to, well, he can't at all because he's straight edge. But you know what I mean, compared to these other guys.
And Tony has all these guys that he's gotten who all seem younger, even if they're not terribly younger than Lashley or something. They all seem younger. And Cody's still ready to be brought back in and worked into something. Adam Page, he still has other guys that weren't even on this pay-per-view that he could get going. WWE, there's a reason it's Goldberg and Lesnar. Who else is there? You're going to go back to McIntyre now? You're going to go back to Rollins now? You got rid of Bray Wyatt. You got rid of Braun Strowman. Not that was a big loss.
Well, I was about to say, every once in a while, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. They probably did a good job there.
Tony has multiple guys he could slot in and out. Vince is, I hate to say it this way, Vince is running out of talent. For top of the card, he's running out of talent. They just signed Gable, what's his name?
Gable Steveson.
Are they going to keep his name or give him some stupid name? He's no longer someone you've all heard of. Now he's John Rivers.
No, they can't change his name. That would be insane, because that's the whole reason they signed him to begin with, because he's a fucking Olympic gold medalist and a star. And but now he's going to become, no, that can't work.
Another question for you. You know the roster. We haven't done the roster for everyone asking. We will do it soon.
Yeah, we're trying.
But you know the roster. You just watched this event. Again, there were some guys like Malachi or Cody who weren't on the pay-per-view. Or Malachi did a promo, but you know what I mean. Who would you program Punk with next?
Well, see, the thing is, it's not a program. He and Darby Allen is not a program. They're not programming somebody with Punk right now. Punk is coming in and working with a select list of people that I'm sure that he has said he wanted to work with to, first of all, establish himself and do what we said, have a good match with the younger guy, teach him in the ring, on the job training with a star that knows timing. And that's what he did with Darby. And I'm sure he'll do it again a time or two with somebody to just establish those early wins. And then maybe get in a program with somebody where there's 3 weeks of interviews on TV and a match is not a program. A program is where you start talking about each other, maybe there's some physical interaction. You have a match. There's a decision that's disputed of some description that would naturally lead to a rematch at whatever point you wanted to have it. That's a program. And he shouldn't be doing those yet. And he's not. You know, goddamn the roster. I mean, I know he's probably seen that he can fucking work some magic with some of these guys. I'm looking through this pay-per-view card. I don't know. You know, he could probably, for that crowd, you could draw money, obviously, with him and Twinkle Toes, but that shouldn't happen for a while. I'm sure he'd love to work with MJF, but that should be, go ahead. I was about to say that should be a program.
That would be great. Those two on the mic, that would be great. But let me ask you about him and Omega. Again, your feelings out of it, but knowing who Omega is to that crowd and that audience.
They can draw some money with that.
Do you do that match while Omega's the champion? Or if Omega is still going to lose to Adam Page, can that match happen without the belt?
Oh, good God. At this point, Adam Page, I'm sorry, wonderful human being, I'm sure. But his booking has been ridiculous since he started. He was a sad fucking sodden drunk and blah, blah, blah. They got Bryan Danielson now. They got CM Punk. They got Adam Cole. They may have Bray Wyatt coming. That's why I said Page should have fucking had this match. He should have driven a camper if he didn't want to be exposed in the pandemic all the way to Chicago and had this match, because I think that should be the last time that we see him in the title picture in a while, because he's got outranked badly over the people that have just come in.
Although when he returns, I think it'll be a big, if they return him with the Dark Order, the idiot fans will still react. But if they return him and treat him right off the bat, they have a chance to get some momentum back with him, but time will tell.
It's just silliness. And this was good for the top level independent talent on TV doing the best they can, but now they're getting stars. They need to rethink that whole. I think, truthfully and honestly, if old Olivier is going to lose that thing at this point, it ought to be to Danielson or to Punk. I don't know if the Punk will want it and whether he even needs it.
That was actually going to be my question. Does a CM Punk, and my gut would be no. Does a CM Punk need the AEW World Title?
I don't think he needs it. I would prefer that Punk not have to get in there and try to work with Olivier and do his foolishness, because that'll take some of the aura off of Punk. I think Danielson could probably, because of his style, get more out of Twinkle Toes than probably most anybody. But yeah, we need to be talking about the stars winning the title now instead of the drunken cowboy that wanders around with masked jobbers with Sharpie marks on their chests. We're growing up here. We're going to college now. Standards are a little bit higher.
Well, speaking of college, some of the listeners out there may want a better career than they have now, and it's probably too late. You can't do it. But some of you may have started early enough and found a great career as an attorney, and I promise you can't be anywhere near as good as the #1 attorney who has lasted so many bad transitions. Jim, I can only be talking about one man.
I ought to get Hotchkiss to start doing the transitions. He couldn't do it worse than you are right now. I'll tell you what, here's the thing. If you want to sue somebody for doing a shitty website for you, then I know the man to call. I can't sue Hotchkiss because he's already got 6 multi-million-dollar judgments against him. I'd have to stand in line. I'm not going to live that long. But if you want the compensation coming to you because of someone else's ineptitude, callousness, greed, or incompetence, then you know what to do.
Call Stephen P. News. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Those are the rest.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, like all the fine products that we advertise here on the program, Stephen P. News sells himself. I'm not talking about on the streets of Beckley late at night on the wrong side of town in desperate need of money. I'm talking about the quality of work that he does in the legal industry and the way he represents each and every one of his clients, literally sells his services by example. NewLawOffice.com 888-692-8084. Whether it's the various problems that we've talked about in the past that many of you have had with the talcum powder causing cancer, or the Philips CPAP machine that was recalled causing cancer, or the poisonous chemicals that were left in the groundwater in Minden, West Virginia causing cancer. You see a common theme here. But there's also the defective earplugs and the folks that were assaulted at the Veterans Administration Hospital. There's the old lady who was trying to be jacked out of $50,000 by State Farm until Stephen P. New intervened. All these things and more. Stephen P. New is a man for you. He's on your side. Get even with Stephen. If you need to sue, call Stephen P. New. We've said all these platitudes before, but he helps people in their daily lives every single day. His services sell themselves. He sells himself. And not in that way, you perverts.
I think only you were thinking about it in that way, but let's get a few more things.
Well, you know, Stephen does have a nice smile.
Let's get a few more things before we wrap things up. A few notes, Jim. As we're recording, this news came in. I don't know if you would know the actor, but very sad to see this. Michael K. Williams was found dead today in New York, apparently, in his apartment, from The Wire. One of the great characters ever on TV, Omar Little. Very, very sad to see this. He was so good on that show. You never watched The Wire, did you?
I never watched that. I did not watch that. I apologize for not knowing who this gentleman is.
It is in the argument for, if not certainly top 3, the greatest television show of all time. And he was maybe the best character on that show.
Better than I Dream of Jeannie?
Blows it out of the water. Blows it out of the water. Barbara Eden wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes in Baltimore. But Jim, another person I want to mention here, and I know you and I were both very sad to see this news, as well as so many other people have reacted to it. The news that Seth Hansen passed away. Now, that's a name that not a lot of the average fans would know, but Seth was someone who, for a very long time on Twitter, posted so much wrestling history and clippings, and I think a lot of people sad and shocked to see he passed away 37 years old, Jim.
Yeah, well, and you know, Seth, we never met, obviously. He was one of our internet friends, and he did, like you said, a lot of the research. He got the newspapers.com subscription, and he would post, and this has been some time, he hadn't been as active. He's had health issues ongoing. But anyway, he'd post the newspaper clippings from famous occurrences, famous cards. He found great stuff, and it was really, his Twitter feed was just incredible with just the wrestling history and all the old cards and posters and things. And to the point where it's my graphic novel, Behind the Curtain, when we were putting that together, I realized I could not find, I believe it was the Wilmington plane crash with Flair and Johnny Valentine, the newspaper coverage from the Wilmington paper. I knew I had the article, could not find it, wanted a clean copy, and I had seen that he had reposted that somewhat recently and got a hold of him, and he was able to send that to me so that we could have a clean clipping to put in the Behind the Curtain novel to illustrate that, you know, these stories we were telling were actually true. And I mean, he did, boom, just like that. He had a huge collection of everything, but we were sad to hear that. And that just came out of the blue, as you said, just over the weekend.
Very nice guy in all my dealings with him. I always appreciated someone who was doing a lot for history, who also credited people who did it before him. You know, he would frequently credit Terry Justice or various people for the different clippings, but will be missed. He was a great resource for wrestling history online, and I'm glad that we could talk about him for a few minutes here on the show. I know he thought very highly of you, Jim, and you did a lot of things for him also.
No, here was the thing, and this, I guess this stuck with him. He made mention of it to other people, but in return for, because on his Twitter feed, he said, you know, something to the effect of, you know, I spend $100 a year for the newspapers.com. If you're going to use my stuff, please credit me or whatever. So when he got me the clipping, it's for a graphic novel. I sent him $100 for his newspaper clipping subscription because he's entertaining us all. It wasn't going to affect my standard of living, but it apparently stuck with him. He's repeated that story to several people. So I'm glad that at least I was a baby face to Seth, for heaven's sake.
Jim, considering the date that is upcoming, we've had several people send in questions asking about 9/11, specifically where you were and what your memories of that day were.
Duh. Well, that was 2001, obviously, and I was involved with OVW, and that was a Tuesday because we were going to do the show at the St. Therese Gym downtown, our training show that we did every Tuesday night, and back then, since I was up late at night, writing or out at shows, I slept later than I do now. So I remember I got up. It was probably about 10 o'clock in the morning that all this shit happened, right? If you go back, it's somewhere close to that because I got up
earlier. Yeah, but it was happening.
Well, I turned the TV on and instantly I turned the TV on there and instantly there's the news because it's on every channel. And one of the towers has already fallen. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm hearing the news report. Yes, we believe a plane flew into the tower and one tower has collapsed and this and that. And all of a sudden then on live TV, that's when I saw the shot of the second one go into the second tower. And holy shit. And then within, obviously minutes, we immediately knew, well, we're not going to be doing a show tonight. We don't know what the fuck's going on. I'm calling Danny Davis. He's calling the church people. We're going to cancel and, be back the next week or whatever. But that's what I'd gotten up was to prepare formats and things for that night's show. So I ended up just sitting there and watching TV for the next several hours, trying to, like everybody else, figure out what the fuck was going on. And little did we know that 20 years later, everything would still be different as a result. Everything from flying to security in every facet of our lives would be different because of those morons. But that's why I remember exactly. That's where I was. I turned the TV on at about 10 o'clock in the morning and saw it right in the middle. And there we go. And it had to be a Tuesday because we canceled St. Therese.
All right, Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi.
Oh, all right.
John Cena recently said he thinks Conor McGregor would be a great fit for WWE. Cena said, quote, "He'd be fantastic. He is what we do." What are your thoughts on Cena's take on Conor McGregor?
I would agree wholeheartedly if it hadn't been for the last 3 years where McGregor got that big payoff and basically they wouldn't be able to afford his ass, or at least not to tell him what to do. But I've said that going back years. He's the promo. He was the promo guy in the UFC. He was Ric Flair, and he was. I don't care whether I don't even know whether he admits it or not, but he was doing wrestling. He's been doing wrestling and wrestling angles and wrestling promos. The gist of it, if he didn't steal it from wrestling directly, it's hyping a fight. And that's why he got over. And he was the guy that was going to go into business for himself, do what he wanted to do. Nobody could control him. And that would translate impeccably to the wrestling business, except that now I believe he's made so much money that I don't honestly think that if he could go in the WWE of 20 years ago in the Attitude Era and 10 million people watching him on Monday night and glass breaks and out comes Conor McGregor, that might be something he'd be interested in. But the programs and quality of same today and the fact that you would literally be an actor being hired to do this rather than a fighter coming in from another sport like it would have been 20 years ago, I don't think he'd put up with any of that shit. And can you imagine some fucking pasty white fucking nerd writer trying to, "Here, Conor, here's what we want you to say." "No, man, I think I'll just talk about fucking his wife." No, he's past that. He would have been great, still would be great, but they can't afford him.
The drive-thru is closed. I've got a big dick too, everyone. We'll be back.
Yeah, but the bad thing is you got it in your mouth.
We'll be back. It's that big, really. Well, thank you very much. I'll do some poetry now. Let's move away from Lanny Poffo as quick as we can, as many people have said many times in their lives. But the experience returns this Saturday, I believe this Saturday, if not Saturday, Sunday, but this weekend, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Of course, the drive-thru back at you next week. Get access to classic episodes of the Drive Thru and the Experience. Go through the archive today at patreon.com/Cornette. Get access to shows from the very beginning in 2013 up to 2017 with more shows being added for only $5 a month. Patreon.com/Cornette. Don't forget to check out the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll come right up. Full episodes, clips of episodes, omnibus collections, all with the very popular, exclusive Travis Heckel artwork. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. You can follow Jim on Twitter at @TheJimCornette. You can follow me on Twitter at @GreatBrianLast. You can hear me on the 605 Superpodcast.
Watch it.
At 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. This is the part where I usually plug something I'm going to avoid this week.
Don't say it.
But remember that you have to be able to sue somebody. Call Stephen P. New, 888-692-8084. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. But until this weekend on The Experience, and next week right back here on the Drive Thru, for Jim Cornette, I'm the Great Brian Last. Happy New Year. Tally-ho!